Hello.
Hello and good morning. Uh-oh. Let's see. Just letting everybody in.
You're standing.
Ha ha ha. Yes. We will be moving from standing to sitting and sitting to standing throughout the day. That's too funny. I am really enjoying this so far. I just got a new sit to stand desk
That's it.
and it is changing my life and my back. I was like, I'm not used to standing, nor am I quite used to sitting. I'm used to walking. Like in a hospital, you walk all day, all day. So both of these are weird to me. Okay. Welcome, welcome. We're just letting everybody in. Let me get my screen going here. Um, let's see if I can figure this part out. Okay. And then um this is the one. Okay. Do you all see my slide there?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Very cool. Look, I have come a long way, y'all. Because if anybody has ever seen me present, you know I'm good for a flip chart.
Yes, you
Absolutely.
are.
So I'm very proud of myself right now. So there may be a little slip ups, but we're gonna get through it. So awesome. Welcome, welcome everybody to the Launch with Confidence workshop. I am, if you don't know me, why wouldn't you know me? But I'm glad you're here. I'm Tavana Denise. Some circles I'm Tavana Boggs, so I just put it all together depending on where you know me from, how long you've known me, what name I go by, where you met me. So today is really a workshop. I'm going to teach a little bit and we're going to work a little bit. We're going to see if I can figure out how to use these breakout rooms. Let's see. If I can figure out these breakout rooms. So the goal for today's session is to take you from feeling like you're treading in water to where you feel like you are doing good work in the world and you also have time and money to do the things you enjoy. So that's the goal of today's session. Many people told me that they feel like they're overwhelmed, they're confused, it's a lot going on. And so we want to make sure that we take you, or the goal is to take you from this space where it's like so much and you feel overwhelmed and there's so many things to do, to feeling like you know what you should be working on at any given point in time. And we want to start putting together your unique formula for creating a business that you love, but that also supports the lifestyle that you want. And so if you've ever heard me talk before, you know that I do not do cookie cutter strategies. This is not a one trick kind of pony kind of thing, because I don't believe there is a wrong way to build a successful business. If that was the case, we wouldn't see Mary Kay and the way she does his business, and we wouldn't see McDonald's, and we wouldn't see the way that you all do business, right? So there is more than one way to build a successful business, and it requires various elements of what I call a thriving business formula. So we're going to help you start to put together your elements, your formula today. And I want to teach you a little bit about what these are, because I think there's a lot of information floating around and it can be overwhelming. So I want you to come away from this also understanding the things that put together a thriving business, so that you can start and pick and choose based on what is good for you and what you need, versus the marketers and everybody that's shouting at you about their way being the best way. Does that sound fair? Okay. So for those of you that are on screen, like, again, this is interactive. I need to get feedback so I know that I'm not losing you, that I know that the sound is still good and everything like that. So.
Nope, we're good. I'm
okay,
good.
awesome. So, oh yeah, I forgot. It's 6:30 where you are. Bravo for being here. Let's see here. And let me just make sure. I don't know if I can do all of these things. Okay. All right. So first, in order for you to understand why I think about and talk about business the way I do, I think it's going to be important. Thank you, Ivory. Let me put the chat here so I can see it. I think it's going to be important for me to share a bit of my story with you. Is that okay with everybody? You can just give me a thumbs up, or I think you can raise your hand in there.
Sure.
Okay. We got, let's see. Okay. So I just want to make sure I let everybody into the group. What is it? All right. Okay. So I actually had my first business before I had my PT license. I was waiting to get licensed and to get my first job. Back in the day, you could work, at least in Maryland, you could work under a temp license. So I was waiting for that to take my test and everything. And my mom she was in Mary Kay and she needed another team member to get to the next level. So she was like, yeah, I need you to be on my team. I'm like, I don't even like wearing makeup. So why would I sell Mary Kay? And so that's what ended up happening. That's how I got into Mary Kay. From there, I was like, well, I really don't like makeup, but I like some of these things in Amway. And so my first business, that's what I did. And then I started working as a PT. From there, I moved to Atlanta and started working my way up the corporate ladder and just knew that I was going to go into management. And if any of you have heard my story, you know that ended abruptly when I wanted to go to see my brother graduate with his master's from NYU. And they told me I could not use the PTO that I had in my bank. And that was not going to work for me. So I quit and started my contracting company. I had zero idea how to start how to set up an LLC, get a business tax license. I didn't know any of that, but I was more determined to be in control of my time and make more money than my fear about not knowing what to do. So that's what happened in 2007. I started Balanced Care and Wellness. That was my contracting company. And if you can see how I titled it, somewhere in my psyche, I knew that I was going to get into the wellness space. From there, in 2009, there was a big boom that I got exposed to in internet marketing. And so I was one of the first people, at least in Atlanta, on Twitter and LinkedIn. And it was great notoriety or what have you, but it helped me to learn a number of things about internet marketing, but not in the best way. So it didn't feel good to me, and I completely left all of that. 3 years later, I founded SoFit Ladies, which is social fitness for ladies. And it was an alternative fitness event company, again, going back to my roots in wellness, where all I did was create alternative fitness events for women and gather them together so that they knew that there were other ways to work out besides running and lifting weights. And so from there in 2014, which is something, SoFit Ladies was something that I was just doing as I was going through my fitness journey. And I wanted to do it for others. I didn't initially start it to make any money, but what happened in 2014 when I got certified as a life coach, I already had a ready audience of people watching me. So I was able to fill my wellness coaching practice at that time. So why do I tell you all of this? Because each one of these quote failures taught me something. Mary Kay and Amway taught me about networking and personal development. This is when I read the book, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Nowhere had I ever experienced this. It was all about the books, right? Being book smart and understanding that. I had never been exposed to the kind of books that they exposed me to in that kind of business. And then in the corporate ladder, it was about managing people. Notice I'm not saying about leading people, because that's not what I was taught. I was taught how to crunch numbers and hire and that kind of thing. And then in Balanced Care and Wellness, I learned how to negotiate contracts, manage multiple jobs and schedules, processes, that kinds of thing. The internet marketing, social media, early adopter, and online marketing tools. So whenever y'all come to me and you're asking me about all these tools and processes, that's why I know, because I got into internet marketing. I've been studying it for so long. And then with SoFit Ladies, it was about membership management and event planning. And then with Savannah Denise, it's the power of coaching, whether it's life, health, wellness, any kind of coaching. And so each one of these things, and I want you to think about, as you see my story, think about all of the things that you've done in your life and what it actually taught you. Sometimes we get down on ourselves and we think, oh, this was a failure, and we beat ourselves up about it. But it truly is, each one of those things is teaching you something. So these quote failures led to me being able to write a book, speak on various stages, have a podcast, and grow an audience of people, and finally be able to walk away from patient care. So if we look at, I started the first business in 2001, right? But in terms of coaching, I started that in 2014. And so some of you all mentioned that your biggest fear would be wasting time and money. My question to you would be, would it be worth, if we look just at the coaching that I've done since 2014, would it be worth it to take 6 years instead of 1 year or 2 years, if you knew that as long as you didn't quit, you would eventually be able to get what you want? And then what's the alternative, right? So is it take 6 years instead of 2 to get what you want, or fail ahead of time and never get what you want? So we're going to dive deeper into the fears that we have now and how to remove the mental barriers to success on a more foundational level, right? Because I can just tell you, we can look at all of the nice little quotes, it's not over till you win and all of these things, but how do you actually, when you feel gripped with fear, how do you actually take action anyway? So I asked you to answer this question for me. This workshop will be successful for me if. And thank you so much for answering that survey, for those of you that were able to do it. You said things like, it will be successful for me if I figure out what online service to start with, what to prioritize and focus on when I sit down to work, how to attract clients or grow an email list outside of my social media network of friends and family, how to get a handle on my imposter syndrome, and how to gather new ideas for marketing, messaging, and increasing my sales and clients. So today, I'm going to help you process the ideas and opportunities that come your way, prioritize your time, figure out what you do and for who, right? Because that is the basis of all marketing and messaging, which we will work on today. You're going to change your relationship with selling, because you can have the best marketing message in the world, but if when the person is in front of you, you have some block about selling, you're still not going to make any money or as much as you would like to. And then how to use your mind to create any result you want in any area of your life, not just business. So if you've ever heard the saying, how you do anything is how you do everything, that is 100% true. So there are many, many things that we need to learn, and you're only one person with limited resources of time and money and energy. So what do you do when? That's one of the first things that we're going to talk about. And so that said, how today is going to work. I said, I'm going to teach a little bit, but I'm mostly going to ask you a lot of questions. We have some decisions to make today. A number of you, as I have talked to you personally, I have read your survey questions. Many of you are stuck in indecision. There are truly a lot of decisions to make when you're starting your business. And one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is just trust that whatever decision you make today with me is the right decision to at least just get started. It is good enough, right? So after I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, you're going to make some decisions today, right? It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel scary. It's going to feel like, well, what if I'm leaving this out? If I do this over here, then I won't be able to do that over there. It's okay. You always can go back and make up your mind, but the decision allows your brain to focus so that you can at least get started. After each segment, we're going to do the work, right? So this is not going to be 4 hours of me just talking to you, and then you get to walk away and say, that was great. I learned a lot. Sure did. But you're going back into the world not being any more clear about your business. So you don't have to take a bunch of notes. If you are in this, you do not have to take tons of notes because I'm going to give you the slides. No problem. You can have them. This is also going to be interactive. So if you are on voice only, if you'll please mute yourself if you have any background noise, but if you're on screen, if you want to give me a thumbs up, raise your hand, what have you, that would be helpful, just so that I know you got it, you're with me. And Zoom has this neat little feature where we can do breakout rooms. So we're going to do some work together in small groups. It's meant to work together because even though I've been studying this for a long time, you all have some great ideas as well. You all have some insights that you can add to the conversation from your own experience. Okay, so we're going to do all of that work together. And there's sometimes something that other people in the room see that we can't see because it's in our blind spot. Here's the other part of how we're going to work today. We're going to ask you to not be shy, okay? There are no wrong answers, only feedback and insight, because we can't help you if you don't speak up. And I'm going to ask you to, let's agree to ask your questions today. Don't hide them. There's no shame. This is just us, right? So I can't help you if I don't know what your question is. So we're going to ask you to agree to ask your questions today, even if you think they're silly, or even if you think you should, right? You should know it, right? Don't worry about getting it perfect. Don't worry about getting it right. We are going into the lab. We are just trying to create something. If we think about today like an experiment, we are making some hypotheses today that we are going to go out and test into the real world. And I know already that this is going to be difficult for some of you who want to get the answer perfect and want to get it right and don't want to make any mistakes. I promise I am also a recovering person from the group of perfectionism. But I want you to just put your best answer down for today. Whatever the answer is, just put it down for today. So if you can agree to do that, can you raise your hand for me? I think even if you're not on camera, there's a raise your hand feature, or at least put it in the chat. Okay, I got some thumbs up. Virtual thumbs up since I can't see y'all. Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we got thumbs up. Everybody's in agreement. We're all of one accord. Ivory's giving me the okay sign. Love it. All right. So the reason why this is important, what we're doing today, is because what people normally do when they decide to start a business is usually one of two things. I see it quite frequently. Either they start with setting up the business entity, or they start setting up the website, which is kind of understandable when you're used to being in a big organization like this, right? Where I've made this super simple, but we know if any of us have worked for big organizations, the organizational chart looks huge, right? And so we think that when we start a business with one person, we need to show up looking polished like a corporation and have all the things in order to get clients. And what I find is it ends up draining us and making us disappointed and frustrated, because people, when they start with the entity, they start with the website, they do all of these things, they end up spending a bunch of precious time, energy, and money, but then they have no clients. How many of y'all have seen that happen? Where people have, or maybe you've even done it. I'm guilty. I've done that before. Had the website, had 0 clients for several months, I would say. Right. I see some hands. Absolutely. So today I'm going to try my best to break down things as simply as possible so that you understand the core things to focus on, so that you'll have a strong foundation to build your business on, one that you can go out and do these things right now today without a fancy website, without the entity. I'm not saying don't ever do it, but we're talking about getting these things done so that you can go ahead and get started and get some clients. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. So, awesome. Got it. I like this little thumbs up thing y'all are doing here. I don't know how y'all are doing it, but that's awesome. Okay. So going back to the idea of this business, these really are the main components. You have marketing, sales, operation, admin, HR, all of that, but we don't need all of that when we're running a business by ourselves. So I want you to think about, let's simplify business for a second and think about it this way. A client has a problem, right? And the marketing of a business is helping the client with the problem be aware, 1, that a solution exists, 2, that you have it, right? Then sales, if marketing is letting the client with the problem be aware that the solution exists, then what is sales? Sales is simply the transfer, helping them decide whether or not your particular solution is a right fit for the problem that they have. And then once you go past the sales, right? So now they have access to the solution, then there's the offer, whatever the actual solution is, and you deliver it to them in a certain way. So this is a very interesting concept because the solution can take many forms. The delivery of the solution can take many forms. It could be a one-to-one solution. It could be a one-to-many solution. It could be a digital solution. It could be a book, right? So this is part of the challenge. People get there, all of these pieces, right? There's the problem. There's just the awareness of the solution. There is the transfer, the giving them access to the solution. There is how is the solution delivered to them? And then of course the customer service. And that's really, if we break it down into its most simple form, that's what business is, right? Because the primary function of a business is to solve problems. Problems come up all the time. I tell people this quite often when I'm in consult with them. Cash flow can be a problem. It can be a challenge. And so if the primary function of a business is to solve problems, in this case, that what we're looking at here is a client problem, but then we also have internal problems that we have to solve. So one of the problems that we might be solving as a business owner is how to make more people, or more of the right people, aware of the solution, aware that we have a solution to their problem, right? So if you don't wrap your mind around and get good at solving problems that crop up in your business, you're going to be in trouble. Okay. So if we think about business in terms of solving problems, right, then what are the elements of a thriving business? And that's what I said I would help you with today, right? So when it comes to creating your unique formula for what a thriving business looks like for you, right? Because everybody's different in terms of what their needs are, what their wants are, where they are in life, what their values are, what's important to them. So that's why, and I think that's one of the things that I learned over the years doing all of those different things, is there's somebody might be really into speaking, and they could say writing a book and speaking is the way to make $1 million, or that's the way to success. And depending on where I was in my life or my skill set or what I wanted to do, that might not have been my thing. Because back in the day, I was all about PT and patient care and moving up the corporate ladder. So it might not have made sense to me to be all about a digital business or a location independent business and a lifestyle like that. But if you have little people at home, and maybe you don't have time to be on calls all day like I do with my coaching business, maybe a one-to-one model is not for you. So anyways, I say all of that to start to get you to think and to start to help you understand that it is absolutely okay to build the business that you want. And so what are the elements of a thriving business? Base elements, for sure. I'm going to tell you what all of these are. Ancillary elements and master elements. When you bring all three of those together, you have a thriving business. So what are they individually? The ancillary elements of a thriving business, and remember, I'm going to give you slides so you don't have to write all this down. But the ancillary elements of a thriving business are, in my opinion, the legal side of things, your entities, all of that, your contracts, the financial, your bookkeepers, all of that, your insurance, liability, whatever. And then tech, and I could put that in delivery too, but tech, right? So these are ancillary, supplementary. Then we have the base elements. Impact, we're going to go through this. Your offer, the marketing, sales, delivery. Right? These are the base elements. Like everything really is built on these elements here, not on these. And then what I call the master elements of a thriving business are your mindset of being the CEO. Mindset of a CEO and the mindset of an employee, very different. So what is your mindset? What is your strategy, or are your strategies, depending on what we're working on? And then execution, how well you do it and how consistently you do it. So all of those things seem important, and we get all over the place because we're like, oh, but the attorney is hollering that I need to set up my LLC, and the we keep getting the HPSO things in the mail that we need insurance. And we're getting the bookkeepers and the CPAs are telling us, well, you got to do your books, right? But like, do your books for what? You don't have any money. you don't have any clients yet, right? So everybody's hollering about their thing. And so all of them seem super important at the time. So what should you be spending your precious resources of time, energy, money on? And how do you find clients? So we're going to focus today, just so we're all on the same page. Today, we're going to focus on the base elements. Okay. And starting with time, because there still are quite a few things to do. Even if we just say only focus on those base elements, those 5 things really break into quite a few things. So how do we get the things done in the amount of time that we have? Some of the people that have registered for this course are at work right now. They're not with us because they're working. So, and that might be the case for you. Some of you all have clinics that you're running. So there are some times where you have patient care. So how do you balance between work or patient care or child care and building your business? And I like to start with time because it's the only resource we can't make more of. And it really is, it can be a major factor when you're making decisions. So what I'd like you to consider is when you are trying to figure out what to do when, instead of just having this long to-do list that is forever, and it really sometimes makes a lot of people feel disappointed because you look at this long list of things and you never quite get through it all. And then something comes up and you're like, well, when do I have time to do what? So I want you to start by thinking about what's important to you first, and then add things to your schedule. That's why I asked you the question of the why. So Simon Sinek, in his famous TED Talk, if you've ever seen it, it's not titled this, but what most people walk away from his TED Talk is the concept of start with why. So I asked you in your pre-work to think about, why are you doing this? Oftentimes it's for more freedom, for more autonomy, for more control over our time, our money, the decisions, the things we do. Somebody put that they wanted to feel more like they had more ethical control over the decisions that they make in their business. So it would kind of suck then, right? If we ended up building a business that we felt like was drowning us. And this is really, really important to me because I experienced this firsthand with my mom. She had an assisted living facility that she called me in to help consult her with because she felt like she was drowning. The thing that was called Gracie's Place, named after my grandma who had Alzheimer's. And she got to a point where she was making a lot of money in the business, but she was exhausted and she was drowning. And whenever the assistant that was there, she had to go in and work for her. And so she asked me to come in and help her figure out where were the time sucks in her business so that she could actually serve her residents and still have time for herself. So I want you to think as you go through this, and I asked you to think about it before today, is like, what do you want to make in terms of money? And how much or how often do you want to work in terms of time? Okay. So let's take a look at what that might look like on a day-to-day basis practically. When do you want to work? It could be the time of day and or days of week. That's what I asked you. What activities are important to you? Is it working out, date night, family night? Somebody put girls' night, meditation. What's important to you? So let's look at this. Is an actual example from one of my clients. In her case, she's working a full-time job. You can see that here. She's giving herself time to get ready in the morning. She's doing some work on her business in the morning. She even gave herself a day to sleep in. I love that. And then, of course, lunch, more work, right? And then workout, dinner, work on business, downtime. She's giving herself all of that. And then on Saturday, Sunday, she's doing client work and she plays in the orchestra here in Atlanta. So she's practicing on the weekend and then workout, right? So in here, I think this is a beautiful example because it shows that there is time for all of the things that she wants to do. There's still blocks here. We call this white space, where there's like nothing scheduled, nothing happening. If what some people use this space for is, say, for example, let's say if you're not working, say you have a business, you're running a clinic right now and the work time is really clinic time, or let's say maybe you've been furloughed right now and you're like, okay, well, this is a good time to work on my business. And you decide that your business hours are going to be in this blue space where it's work hours. If you do not have any clients yet, this is still time you should be working on your business. Whether that means if there is a specific skill that you need to learn, a class that you need to take, right? And notice, and this is one thing that I do notice about many business owners when they go from employee to entrepreneur, they're not giving themselves a break. They're not giving themselves lunchtime. Give yourself breaks, give yourself lunchtime, because I find when I know that there's a break coming, it's easier for me to keep working, keep my head down, stay focused, stay working. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into our first work section. And I want you to take a look at, and let's do this. I'm going to put this up so you can kind of think about your work schedule. Okay, when you want to work, when you want to be off, when you're going to work out, all of those things, and work on it I don't think this one requires a group, but we're going to give it, let's say it's 10:06 now. Let's go to at least 15 after the hour. And then if you still need more time than that, we will do that. Okay. So I'm going to leave this up and just take a look at this. Actually, let me give you this example and take a look at this and start to work on yours. So we're going for about the next 10 minutes. And then I'll come back on screen. Of course, raise your hand if you have any questions. Remember to leave white space. Don't overschedule yourself.
Oops.
Okay, how's everybody doing? Everybody got their, at least a rough outline of their everything, of their schedule. Can you all see me? Okay. So I can't see myself anymore. That's great. Okay. we're going to go with it. Um, that's so weird. Okay. All right. And it looks like, yes, I am recording this. Everybody will get a copy of the recording so you can go through along with some of the additional resources that I'm providing. So what I'd like for you to do, if you have another sheet of paper, to write these things down and give yourself space, because these are things that we are walking away with today. I'll just give you a minute to write these down. I do actually want you to write those down because you want to be able to put a couple of things under there. Should not take more than a half a sheet of paper. So you just need enough space in between for a half a sheet of paper. There we go. I can see me and y'all again. That's better. So hopefully you have at least written down what your business hours are going to be. This is going to require some discipline, because just like you saw in that other example, it was, in her mind at least, not optional not to work from 9 to 6, I think it was, during Monday to Friday. So we need to take our business as seriously and write when we are going to focus on our business. So please, under business hours, write what are your hours that you are going to focus on your business. Okay, so that's the first part. Then the other big question that everyone had was, okay, well, what should I sell? Like, I have all these ideas in my brains. What should I sell? How much should it cost? What form should it be in? How should I market it? Right? Where do I find these clients? So in order to answer that, you have to know who you're selling to and what their problem is. Remember, we talked about that. So when we talk about your offer, it is really comprised of the what from your pre-work and the who from your pre-work. So I asked you to think about what subjects can you talk about all day? Or if I asked you to stand up and talk for the next hour, what could you talk about off the top of your head without any notes, right? What do you love reading or researching about? What ticks you off? Not just in your life, but about the things that you love to talk about, right? What ticks you off about a particular subject? What breaks your heart, either about a subject, the way it's taught. Like, one of the things ticks me off is that people are one-trick ponies. They call themselves business coaches and they are just telling you their way. They are not taking into account all of your personality, your skills, your strengths, your expertise, your desires for what your business is. People put the 100K mark or the million up there as it's this great milestone. But what if you don't need or want to make that amount of money? What if you don't want to create a course? You love interacting with people. What if you don't want you want deep, long relationships one-to-one instead of one-to-many, right? So that's one of the things that ticks me off. And what breaks my heart is that there are some brilliant people that are suffering in their jobs that they hate, but they're brilliant and they could be doing something on their own, but they don't know that it is, although it is definitely work and it requires you to grow being in business, that it's not as hard as some people are making it out to be. So that's when I give you an example, that's what I mean. Like, what ticks you off? What breaks your heart? What do you get really fired up about? That's the what. Right. And again, remember, B minus work changes lives. We're just going to make a decision today in the moment. Go with your gut. That whatever you start with, trust that it is the right answer for you to at least get started today. So then we talk about the who. Who do you love to serve? What type of personality, what type of mindset, sex, age range, or demographic, right? I didn't say who you could or who you like to work with, because we have this idea of, especially if we came from orthopedic outpatient or I was in a hospital, I just showed up to work and they served me whoever, whatever was on my patient list, that's who I worked with. But if we're really honest with ourselves, there are some specific types of people that we really enjoy working with. And since we can't work with everybody anyway, we might as well, again, this is a thriving business that we're trying to build, one that we love, right? We don't want to create a monster that we don't enjoy, right? So if you had your way, and you do, who would you love to work with? And let's go a little bit deeper than their age, and like you can talk about their cars and stuff like that, but I really want you to think about age. I got one person sent me their stuff and they said 20 to 40-year-old mothers with littles, which I love so much, that whole littles. I call them little people too. But a 20-year-old raising little people has different thought process, different challenges, different ways of being in the world, different experiences than a 40-year-old with littles, right? And now we even have 50-year-olds with littles. So if like you can always accept anyone into your doors that comes if you want to, but you're the bouncer at the VIP with the velvet rope and you get to say, nope, you don't get to come in, right? So if you could, there's 7 billion people. It's probably more than that now, but 7 billion people in the world. We can't work with all of them. If you just had a handful of ones that you loved working with, could you describe them for me? Describe them for me. What is it about them? Some of you all have said you don't like to work with people who don't want to accept responsibility for their healing. If you're working in that, they don't want to take responsibility. Okay. Great. Now we know what you don't want. The challenge is to articulate, to describe what you do want. So I'll give you my own personal example. I do love people that don't take themselves so seriously, that like to have fun, that don't mind colorful language or colorful hair. Mine used to be purple, which maybe I was having a midlife crisis and decided at 39 that I wanted purple hair, but whatever. Okay. So people that don't lead with their letters behind their name, that understand that they're a person first, right? So that's a psychographic. People that are compassionate, hardworking, intelligent, like that care about people, that are not into a whole bunch of competition, that really want to do good work in the world. That's who I want to work with. Now, they can have various ages, but the age is not as important to me personally as how they move and how they show up in the world. For you, it might be the age, because if I'm talking to, I know a couple of you all are women's health specialists. So it might be like the needs of a new mother at 20 and the snapback, which I saw online, is different than the needs of a first-time mother at 40. So those are some considerations where age might be important to you. But for me, I don't care how old the business owner is. I care more about how she is, right? Or he. I, on occasion, have the he. And so this is what I want you to think about. So let's take a minute. We're going to go into another work session. And I want you to just jot down those statements. Now, if you have your pre-work in front of you, pull it back up, take a look at it and see, do you still like your answers? Is there anything you want to change? If you knew without a shadow of a doubt that you could find this person that you dreamed up in your mind, or maybe you've already been exposed to him or her, how would you describe them? Write it down, put it in front of you so you can see. We're going to need these answers. The what and the who, right? This is not designed to be perfect. And so what we're going to take with those answers, we're going to do we're going to go to 45 after the hour, because not only do I want you to take your answers from your pre-work, if you already have all of that together, great. This is the assignment I want you to work on. This assignment here, I call it the power statement. It is not designed to be perfect. Hold on a second. Yeah, so it's not designed to be perfect. It might not even sound right the first few times you say it or try to say it out loud. I just want you to try to boil down what you do and who you do it for to the essence of like just some specific things, so that you can start to get more clear in your mind about what you're doing, who you're doing it for. And this is where I need to figure out the breakout rooms. So while I'm trying to figure out the breakout rooms, please pull out your pre-work and or start working on the power statement. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to try to bring you into the breakout room so that you can kind of share with one another. And I'll be popping in and trying to help there. Okay, it's not letting me do the breakout rooms, but the group is small enough where we can do it together. But as you work there, I've given you two different ways that you can put together your power statement, because sometimes one is more appropriate than the other. So sometimes you might see the I help or I work with insert ideal client to do X, Y, or Z so that they can whatever. Now you might see that version of a power statement on a website, for example, or you might see it on a business card. But in reality, when we're in a actual networking situation, what you might end up seeing is I help women in healthcare launch businesses that they love without spending a ton of money on a website or something like that, right? So this is just a starter. So try one of each if you can. So first of all, start with your ideal client, just keep it simple. And what you do with them, a couple of benefits. Here's the same ideal client, the thing that they want without the thing that they don't want. So if you're into the health, I help them lose the weight without dieting, for example. Okay. So let's keep working on that. And if you'll just raise your hand or do your thumbs up thing when you have yours, and we'll workshop that. So everybody has until 45 after the hour. Okay, as soon as you have yours, if you'll put it in the chat for us. So we're going to start workshopping these. Got about 5 minutes left. If any of you all have worked with me before, you know there's other variations of that. So if you'll also put your variation in there. Ivory, I know you have a new one as well. So we want to give a few different examples of how this can be done. And I think Alicia, you also have a version. Okay, couple minutes left. I see them rolling in here. For those of you who have already posted, okay, we're at 45 above the hour. So let me sit down for a second and we will workshop through these. Okay, let's start from the top here. Lisa has, I help women who are overwhelmed manage their own wellness and discover their own version of health to live their very best lives. Or I help women who are overwhelmed manage their own wellness and discover their own version of health without focusing on their weight. Okay. Women who are overwhelmed, how does, and I may ask you to talk to. we need to work through this. Okay. So one of the things that I find we try to do when we take our first crack at this. So thanks for playing along, everyone. B- work changes lives, and let's just make some decisions. If you're still working, please get yours into the chat so we can workshop it. They're too long oftentimes. So if you think about it, like if we read it or if we had to say it, it might be too long. So women who are overwhelmed, it's a little bit too broad. So if Lisa, let's have you unmute yourself and tell me, like, is there something more specific that we could call to where if you were talking to someone, let's say even a man, they would know, oh, you need to talk to my sister Susan. Like, what's another way we could describe this person that you love to work with who is overwhelmed that somebody could call up in their mind who this is?
So I guess, so I sent you the longer version. So I guess what I'm trying to say with overwhelmed, and I guess that's the hard part, figuring out a new word. I'm trying to target the woman who, has a lot of responsibility, has a lot going on. And because of that, they don't actually spend a lot of time taking care of themselves. So they probably don't have a regular workout routine. They're definitely not going to the spa. They're not getting a lot of me time, personal time. So I'm trying to find the person who has so much going on around them that they're not caring for themselves.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is, that could be any number of people, right? But can you be a little bit more specific into who that woman how would she self-identify? Like when I say
She's
that
probably a mother.
okay, so say that.
Okay.
Overwhelmed mothers, like, and I know this is the tendency, and I'm not sure, like, we haven't talked in deep levels about it, but we want to have everybody. So if you say a mom, then I'm automatically out in terms of, if you're talking to somebody, they're not going to think about me because I'm not a mom. However, if I see enough of your posts and they're speaking to the problems that I'm having, I may reach out to you myself. But there are a zillion mothers. Like, there are so many mothers in the world, you will never be at a loss for work if you just go ahead and be brave enough to call them out. Like, I work with moms, period. Okay. Because here's the thing, you're a mom and there are specific mom challenges.
Definitely.
That single people without kids and responsibilities in that way don't have. Right. So moms, right? So I work with, okay, so what type of mom might be overwhelmed? Is it we call them Buckhead Betties, and that probably is not a nice thing to say, but I live in Buckhead and they're called Buckhead Betties because before coronavirus, everybody, like, I was working at the hospital. So Mondays, I haven't worked Mondays in a decade, but at 10 o'clock on a Monday, they would be at your nearest bar studio along with me with this ginormous diamond on, which, gives me some indication that they're not working all the time. So they're not they might be a mom, but they're not an overwhelmed mom. So how, like, what else besides a mom? So mom is good. What other kind of descriptor can we give her that she is going to be overwhelmed, she is going to be tired, but she can also self-identify when she hears you? So she's a mom, but what else possibly? Just some ideas.
I would say mothers who are busy,
Working mothers?
Working mothers, yeah. It could be
Okay.
working mothers, yeah.
Okay. Right. So now we're getting even more specific.
Yeah, we are. That is uncomfortable.
Mm,
Narrowing down. Okay. So,
right.
working
But
mothers.
as soon as you say working mother, now I got some ideas for you. You say women who are overwhelmed, I got no ideas for you.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I help
Okay.
working mothers who are overwhelmed or
No, they
you
just
don't have to say
working
that,
mothers.
mothers. Okay. Yeah.
Working mothers. Okay. So here we go. Another layer, right? Working mothers. So I have some people in the courage circle with me who are working mothers, but their kids are 16, 17, 18, 21.
Mm-hmm.
They might be overwhelmed for different reasons.
Yeah.
But do you want all of the working mothers, or is there a specific type of working mother? Like, how can they be bound together where they say, for sure, you are talking about me? You're not talking about this lady standing next to me. You are talking about me.
That's a good one. Working mothers. I mean, I could say of small children, but I do feel like that is super specific. And I don't necessarily, I do think that's where a lot of challenges come, but then I think there's a whole nother set of challenges when they're, older and you're trying to manage everything. So,
So if you had your pick
mhm.
and you knew you could make plenty of money and find enough of them, which one would you like to work with?
Which mother? Which type of?
You just gave me two different types of moms.
Probably the ones with the smaller children, just because I relate so well to it at this point in my journey.
Mm-hmm.
My children are small, but I don't know. I guess the smaller children, because I think that's okay. I'll go with mothers with smaller children because in the book that I wrote and in some of my teachings when I'm coaching patients and clients is we're demonstrating how to care for ourselves to our children and how they're supposed to care for themselves later. And so I guess that is better when you can start young. So you got little kids and they see you taking breaks and doing the things you need to do for your own health. They will adopt that mindset and realize that's important. So I'll say mothers with small children, working mothers with small children.
So it's interesting. I want everybody to listen to this, how you've written a book about this.
I did, yeah.
A whole book. But yet you want to not you want to go grab the other people too. But your book, right? It's uncomfortable, yes. But now if you tell me that you work with, what's the new statement? Working moms of children, like however you might phrase this, kids under age 5 or kids not in school, or you see how we can even get more descriptive.
Yeah, definitely.
You help them, you already have the book. So the book is the lead in so that everything makes sense. Your messaging.
Yeah.
Because you already messaged it in the book. Your messaging on Instagram, because that's where you're most active. All of that ties together and it's not confusing for anybody that lands in your space.
Makes sense.
Okay. I just wanted, and not picking on you, and I hope everybody got something out of that, because this is what we do, right? She has intellectual property, a book that we could easily now, anything that's in your book, you could be talking about on Instagram. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want you to do then, so you have, I help women who are overwhelmed manage their wellness. Okay. So now go back. I'm going to go to the next person. I want you to take what we just did and rewrite your statement.
Okay.
And then the next part of your statement, I want you to look at manage their own wellness. What does that mean? I have no idea. Not really. So the next part is I want you to get a little more specific about manage their own wellness. What does that mean? More specifically, what does that look like? Because when you're in a networking situation, the person's brain needs to visually see what's happening.
Okay.
I have no thoughts when I said, just like with overwhelmed, I don't know what that means. A woman that's overwhelmed. I got nothing for you. I don't know what manage her wellness means. Does she have a weight issue? Does she have a specific health challenge? Or does she have a range of health challenges? That might be the case for you because you chose the woman that has younger kids. So try to brainstorm a few ideas about what wellness actually means. What are her specific challenges that she's having right now with regards to her health? Okay.
Okay.
All right. And you can put multiple ones because when you're actually in a situation, depending on like a group or a podcast, you might talk about different things. So if I'm, for example, in some cases, if I'm on a podcast, I'm only talking about burnout. And in some cases on a podcast, I'm really more talking about business. So it's okay to have multiple things that you work on with your clients.
Okay.
But we couldn't even get there until we got more specific about what type of woman that's overwhelmed.
Gotcha.
Yep. Okay. Who do we have here? I think the next one was Jennifer. Jennifer, you are up. If you'll unmute yourself, please.
Okay, I'm all yours.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so it was broken up. Elite, you said
Yeah, sorry.
elite and recreational athletes modify play so as to not be totally off, thus returning to play as soon as possible for the same client to educate on prevention of injury, not to lose. Okay, out of play, well, first of all, let me back up. I hear the lovely accent. I'm so jealous. I always wanted an accent. And I know I have an accent to you, but I don't have an accent. Okay. So where are you based right now?
So the plan is, obviously I'm in the forming stage. The plan is to go into business with 3 exercise physiologists in a D1 facility. So a D1 facility are these franchise facilities that do a lot of high school athletes, group classes. They do some younger as well. They do a lot of collegiate athletes in the area. And then they also work with a lot of your adult from, weekend warriors to elite athletes. And the plan that we're going to be doing, that we've been working on, is obviously I'm going to do an excessive amount of education to parents, to athletes, and then we're going to work together to try, because some of the, these high school and collegiate athletes have a lot of money riding on their performance ability. Mm-hmm. So our plan is to try and minimize obviously injuries. There's a lot of things as a sports physical therapist you can do to actually maximize performance. Mm-hmm. And then to, do a lot of education for the staff, because I am working with predominant master's degrees exercise physiologists. Mm-hmm. And then to be able to, I really only enjoy the hands-on component of physical therapy. I don't enjoy the monotonous workout part. And then they're going to take that component over.
Makes sense. So you're based in the US though, right?
Yes, I'm based in Colorado.
In Colorado. Okay. The reason I'm asking is because of the word play here. I don't know that they would use the word play.
Okay.
So what would your athletes, these ones that have a lot of money riding, because it might be scholarships, it might be a chance to the pros or what have you, how might they phrase this? They're not saying I don't want to lose time out of play. What are they saying? Like the actual words that they say to you?
I guess it's just time out of the activity, out of their sport.
Okay. Probably out of sport, out of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good, out of the game would be a good word. Because I don't know what the American terminology for that, but I guess a good thing would do to maybe do a questionnaire with the kids and the trainers. Right. And see what terminology they use.
100%. That's where I would go for you to be more specific and effective in this. It would definitely be out of the game or off of the field. So I would say out of the game if you are crossing sports. because
Yes, I'm
obviously,
crossing sport.
right. So
Yeah, I
then out
do.
of the game would be better than off of the field or off of the court, because like even to get even tighter, but since you gave me some background and you're working across sports, but to
Mm-hmm.
even get more tight, if you were only working with basketball players, it would be on
Sure.
more time on the court or something like that, right?
Yeah. No, but it's from, a high school golfer all the way through a collegiate football player hoping to make the pros. And then we work with the semi-pro soccer team in our town as well.
Okay, so then it's the game. So
Yeah,
be very
okay.
conscious, everyone, of the language that you use, that we're not using things that we would say, but we're using things that they would actually say out of their mouth. How would
Okay.
they talk about it? Because if you say what I'm thinking or what I normally say, then I know that you're my person.
Okay. So really, really think about surveying these kids and to hear what the terminology currently is that our teenagers and college kids are using.
Right. And so what is the thing? So if we go to you, I think your most powerful power statement would be version 2 here. I help. How do they refer to themselves? D1 athletes or athletes looking to get into the pros, or like that's where you need to survey. What is their
Mm-hmm.
goal? What are
Okay.
the phrases that they use? So I help, we know they're athletes, we kind of know their age, but elite and recreational athletes, I don't know that they call themselves that. What would they call themselves? I work with
Okay.
D1 athletes, right? So figure that out by doing your
Okay.
survey. What is the thing they want? Get into the pros or stay in the game, or right?
Mm-hmm.
Maximize performance, close, but that's probably not what they say. That's probably
No,
what y'all,
that's sure.
the exercise physiologists, say. So what is the thing that they want? That's why your survey is going to be important. And what is the thing they don't want?
Okay.
Okay, good stuff.
Totally.
Where are we at here? Next, we got Jensen. You are up, my dear. Where you at?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, yay.
Okay. I help newly diagnosed people develop activity plans so they can go through life prepared stronger physically, mentally, and emotionally. Okay. I'm going to ask you to tell me what I'm about to say.
What people?
Okay, so diagnosed with what? What people and diagnosed with what?
I like a lot of diagnoses. It's just anybody with a new diagnosis, whether it's hypertension, diabetes, cancer, osteoarthritis. I just feel like
Those are chronic diagnoses.
yes,
Right.
yes,
So that's
chronic
not any
diagnosis.
diagnosis. That's really because you didn't say PCOS.
No.
Right. So
It is chronic. Yes, I was thinking chronic because of just how sedentary people become after a diagnosis. And I also think they're often left out of activity plans until something is really wrong. When that's kind of, it's too late, or it's not enough. And I think it would be so much more empowering to immediately have access to information about your physical, mental, emotional state and how to improve it immediately. So that's why I said newly diagnosis is the most important part.
Okay, but I still, with just like with everybody else, I need you to be more specific, because then that way, when you say people recently diagnosed with cancer, diabetes, or high blood pressure, you can say it that way. I help people recently diagnosed with cancer, diabetes, or high blood pressure. I think even that is a bit broad.
Okay.
Because to me, I think of cancer. So the high blood pressure and the diabetes, we as healthcare professionals classify as a lifestyle kind of situation, whereas the cancer, we don't typically. So maybe you start with, and you can always expand into cancer. But if you start with, I help people recently diagnosed with high blood pressure or diabetes.
Yeah.
Right. Then immediately my brain says, oh, my aunt just got diagnosed with diabetes.
Okay.
Right. So if you do that, then what are you going to help them with? What are the challenges that they're having. Because activity plans, why do I need or want an activity plan?
Right. I just think that it's the opposite of being sedentary. That's what I
Well,
think of as.
No, I understand why you put it there. You know that that's what they need, but what do they want?
To feel empowered over their condition, to feel like the condition is not, the diagnosis is not a death sentence. It's not what happened to your grandmother or your great aunt, that kind of thing. There's
Write that down, what you just said for a second. We're going to put that to the side. That might be in your messaging, but that's not for this right here.
Okay.
So somewhere in your messaging, you're going to speak to them and let them know that their diagnosis is not a death sentence.
Yes.
And da 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 da. But that's not what you're going to say. If you meet somebody in the grocery store, which I know we're 6 feet, we're not talking to people, but if you were to write, you wouldn't say that in the grocery store. So on my first meeting of you, I know now I'm clear. Okay. Recently diagnosed with high blood pressure or diabetes. And what do they want? Not what they need, not what you want to help with. What do they think, what do they want? Or what do they think they need?
They think they need a cure. They think they need to be rid of it.
Okay.
At least that's what I think.
Right. Right. So what could you do? Like, do they want to be on a plan? You help them figure out a plan to safely work with their physician to wean them off of these expensive meds, to wean them off the meds, to put them on a path so they might be able to reduce or eliminate the need for medication in the future?
To get it under control. Get it under control.
Right.
So that it doesn't control them.
That's not what they're thinking.
Okay.
They might be thinking, I need to get this under control.
Yeah. So the wording here is around activity plan is really not strong enough to communicate my message. So I'll cross that out and put I help newly diagnosed people with hypertension or diabetes get control so they can go through life prepared, stronger, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
No, I would get rid of that for right now.
Okay.
So it's something around the getting control.
Okay.
So they can what? And that's why I was thinking about, and I could be wrong, but this is telling me that you, much like Jennifer, need to go survey these people.
I keep thinking about power, and because stronger also says power, and to say it like in the elevator speech, if that's what we're doing, like what you say to somebody in a 5-minute elevator speech, or not even.
I was about to say, you don't have 5 seconds.
Not even 5 minutes, more like 30 seconds.
Yeah, but, you got 30 seconds. So that's why, Ginseng, listen, I want you to survey your people.
Okay.
You're going to get the language like Jennifer.
Okay.
So your statement, you probably will be able to do both of these statements. I work with, or I help people recently diagnosed with diabetes or high blood pressure do what? Create plans. So create exercise plans or create whatever kind of plans so they can manage the condition with less medicine.
Okay.
Right? Do you see how I did that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Recently diagnosed. Okay.
Manage it with less medicine or something like that. That's the direction that you would be going to, because it's like 10 seconds. Oh, I immediately know who needs you because you're saying recently diagnosed with high blood pressure or diabetes, and I automatically know what they're going to get. They're going to manage it with less medicine.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Ivory, I help adult, Ivory, yeah. I help adult women survivors of sexual emotional abuse who want to break the generational pattern or curse of silent suffering through soul level healing. So that it's too long. It's too hard to say and it's too long. So let's talk about okay. We can also, I know you were getting specific with adult women survivors. So, survivors of sexual or emotional childhood abuse. How else can you say that more succinctly?
No.
Can it just be, and this is just throwing it out there, I help survivors of childhood abuse?
That could be,
I think that probably is a better lead in, because what's going to happen is, and I know you, because there is the people that were physical abuse, and that's not who you're talking to. However, in this case, if we're talking about, you got 10 seconds to tell me what you do or I'm tuning you out. Survivors of childhood abuse at least makes me lean in to maybe ask you some questions, because then you can say specifically sexual or emotional abuse. Then that way, as I lean in to ask you some questions and you say specifically sexual or childhood abuse, then I toss out the person that I know that was physically abused, or I can say, well, what about this person? Do you think you can help them? And then you get to decide yes or no. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay. Now, who want to break the generational curse? This second part that you're talking about, I think is kind of like Jensen's part where I told her to write that down. I forgot what it was. It was so brilliant now. But that might be something that's in your literature somewhere else.
Okay.
The soul level healing is something that you can use in your method when you talk about how. Right. So if
Okay.
you notice here, you got pretty specific with us on the ideal client. And you talked about the thing that they want, but then you start talking about your process, soul level healing and all of that. No, in the power statements, as you see them on the screen before, we're talking about benefits and things they want without the things they don't want, not our process. Right.
Okay.
We just want them to be excited enough to schedule time to talk to you or sit down and chat or whatever.
All right.
Okay.
So,
go ahead.
Okay. So can we keep in the silent suffering piece of it? Because I think that that's a big issue. I think that that's really a, what's the word I'm looking for? I really think that that's important to note. And the reason I say that is because it's not talked about. So people do suffer in silence.
Right. So that would be just like the soul, like break the generational curse and the silent suffering. That's somewhere else in your messaging, but that's not in the first 2 seconds.
Okay. So
I think that is very important, right? Just like we talked about burnout for a long time, it was a silent suffering. Many people weren't talking about it. So it's important, but that's not what you say in the right at the onset.
Okay, so I help adult women survivors of childhood abuse who, let's see,
What do they want?
these people want to feel better. They want to be heard. They want to get rid of this anxiety. They want.
Is it the shame? Is the shame keeping them silent?
It's definitely shame that's keeping them silent. It is guilt. It is they don't have anyone to talk to. They don't know how to process this. You know, I think that they are not putting two and two together. I think that they don't have the support.
Okay, wait a minute. Help women survivors of childhood abuse reclaim is something without suffering in silence.
Reclaim their power, their voice, their confidence.
Their confidence, maybe.
Reclaim their confidence and peace of mind. Because a lot of these people suffer mentally.
Yes. So what you're going to do, Ivory, is your survey. Most of y'all I'm going to be sending back to the survey. You need to survey your people.
Well, I have done that though. I've done
right.
Surveyed people. And the biggest thing is I'm struggling with it because it's so dynamic and there's so many different people. Another thing is being in toxic relationships, emotionally, there's this element of fear. So I know what it is. It's just a matter of making it very concise.
Right. So what I want you to do is write down all of the phrases that you collected from your survey.
Okay.
Write them in columns. So you can write the phrase and then you can write next to the phrase, is it a benefit? Is it a thing they want? Is it a thing they don't want?
Okay.
Because we may need to put together combinations of things.
Okay.
Because it is so dynamic. And because it is not something that is often talked about in public. So if you'll do that for me while I work with the next person. Do I have another person? Yep. Okay. So yeah, that's what I want you to do, Ivory. Put your phrases down and put benefit, thing they want, or thing they don't want. And then see if anything emerges from that and we can still workshop that for you. Okay, who's next? Okay, that is Alexis A to Z Dance Med Clinic. Okay, two arms here. She's got the clinic arm. I help dancers achieve platinum performance without painful stretching, 1,000 crunches, or 10-minute planks. Okay, well, that's very specific. All righty. Is this what you're currently using, Alexis?
I love how I'm saying hold on and I'm still muted. No, I actually just wrote that one down.
Okay. Now I don't know much about dance. So do they refer to it as platinum performance?
Platinum is the highest award level across most competitive dance circuits. So it's like the highest score, like an award that you can achieve.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they're very used to hearing that word and wanting to like score a platinum for their dance or for their solo.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That's pretty good there. Okay, then on the education arm, I help dance educators develop the knowledge and skills to break down movement and build up stronger, healthier dancers. I like how you use the breakdown and build up in there. Dance educators, is that just, who's in that? Who would self-identify as that, just for my own?
I do kind of, that is kind of like the term that I've been trying to use across my branding. And it's an umbrella term for basically anybody who's responsible or participates in a dancer's training journey. So instructors, studio owners, choreographers, technical directors, rehearsal directors. It can be like anybody in the dance world. And like, I'm trying to position it so that the words that I'm using are dance educator and clinician or wellness professional.
Right, for your
For
certification.
certification and for like the entire like education like division. You're either a dance educator or you're a clinician.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so the only thing is with the dance educator, somewhere on your site or somewhere you can maybe break it down so people know exactly what that is
Yes,
if they don't.
it does. So it might be something that I can just tweak on the website, but for the certification, it says like who are those people, and it says instructors, studio owners. I've narrowed it down to instructors, studio owners, and choreographers are the top 3 examples that I keep with consistently, so it doesn't get on like a running list.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And we like 3s. The brain likes 3s anyway.
Yes,
So
exactly.
perfect. Okay. And Alicia says she wants you to write hers. No, she's going to write her own right now. I see it. I help hikers get fit and ready for adventure. Hikers get fit and ready. I thought one time you came up with something that was short, punchy, but still more descriptive than this. Alicia.
Yeah, it was really about that. It might have had 1 or 2 more words in it.
I thought that like the so they could, because your ideal client.
What I had said before was I help hikers get fit so they can live an adventurous life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I had done.
I thought in one of the versions that you had was also talking about, what was it talking about? Because your people are also like first time adventurers, right?
Yeah, some of them are experienced, but.
Okay, so who's the ideal client? So I'm going to go back to like we did Dr. Lisa. We got 2 Lisas now, 2 Dr. Lisas now. I got to figure out how to differentiate y'all. We got 2 Lisas. But like with Lisa, if you have 2 right now, which one, like you can always still accept in an experienced hiker if they want to work with you, but who are you going to talk to? Because an experienced hiker doesn't need to necessarily know about hydration.
Right. No, and that's, I had kind of envisioned 2 programs. So one would be for the newer hiker, someone who wants to take on a dream adventure. And then of course, a one-on-one for the veteran hiker to tweak things.
Mm-hmm. But most of your stuff that you're putting out right now is for the newer hiker, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me what that sentence is for them.
I don't want to say new hikers. I would say, because I don't know. You stumped me here.
We need a descriptive.
Here's the thing, though. I don't want to say novice because, people don't typically just one day say, I'm going to hike. Like people have done some hiking, but they want to be better, do better, or conquer a dream trail. So that was one of the things I had said before.
Well, why not just say I help hikers conquer their dream trail?
Yeah, that was one of the versions.
Yeah. There you go. Period. Okay. I help them conquer their dream trail. Mm-hmm. And then you can say under that, whether it's your first hike up the summit or your, the thing on your bucket list, then you can kind of describe a little bit more. Then you can kind of break them into the 2 parts and describe a little bit. differently better.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to read this for the people that are watching the replay because they won't be able to see the chat. But Jennifer was asking, can you explain more about what you mean the brain likes 3? And Alexis, thank you so much for giving the description here. Odd numbers subconsciously have a rhythmic appeal and symmetry in thought and visual representation. Bibbidi boppity boo. Cool, calm, and collected. Live, laugh, love. And pictures usually hang in 3, 5s, and 7s. So when we're teaching, usually it's, like she said, 3, 5s, and 7s, or in the rule of 3. It's just easier to remember. Okay. So that's the one part of what we're working on here. Now, let's go to this slide that I accidentally kept sharing. So then so that's the what and the who of what you're doing, what you're working on, the offer. So then the delivery and the delivery or the how comes up. And to me, I look at it in terms of, it's a question of who you are. When it comes to creating a business that thrives, that flows, you need to know, what business model do you want to use? Is it a membership? Is it a course? Is it a coaching program? I talked about that a little bit earlier. Like, what's your style? Do you like to go deep one-on-one, or do you want a leveraged model? Now, if we're talking about launching with confidence, launching quickly, I think if you haven't heard of it, it's the concept of the MVP, and not sports, Jennifer. the concept of the minimum viable product. So what is the smallest, easiest thing that you can put out into the world that will help your person get results, but doesn't require hours and hours to create, right? And so it's the easiest way for many people to get started in the beginning is a one-on-one coaching program, because you don't have to create stuff up front. You get to meet the person and where they are, meet them in the middle. You have your framework in terms of what you want to take them through, what your process, what your methodology is, but you don't have to go create a ton of modules and lessons and all of that before you sell it. You don't even have to create a lot of that in order to sell it and successfully help people get results. So that is often why people look at one-on-one coaching. Does that mean that you have to do that forever? No. Where I'm asking some of you all to go and do surveys and really make sure that you understand the language is also going to help you understand the problems. But what really makes stuff happen is when you've coached people one-on-one, that's what makes your methodology, your framework, your process so good. Because let's take Alicia, for example, as she goes out, she's an experienced hiker. And so she knows that there are specific things that you need to know and need to understand. And I'm an experienced cyclist, so I know there are things that you need to know and understand and prepare for and blah, blah, blah. However, when it's one thing to be the experienced athlete, and it's another thing when you're coaching people, because sometimes we call it the master's curse. There are things that are in my brain that I understand just because I've done it or got it through osmosis or whatever, that I may forget or not communicate to you because my brain has skipped over it. Like the picture in your house that you never look at anymore because it's been there for however many months or years, right? So the process of working with someone one-on-one, even if this is your area of expertise, is very much like when I was working in the hospital. After a while, there were very few questions that came up because I noticed after so many years and so many hundreds and probably thousands of clients or hours, I knew what they were going to ask before they asked it. When I walked in, I came in with a second gown to cover their rear because I had just done it so many times. I knew that was a question. Now, when it came to the actual what they need to do to get in and out of bed, stand up, walk, like that's what we learned in school. But what we didn't learn in school is that these people are worried about getting out of bed with you because their behind is going to be out. So you better come, at least my brain said, you better go in there with a gown to cover their backside. right? So this is why the one-on-one, at least in the beginning, is easier, and it becomes easier for you to create courses and more leveraged products because you already know what the frequently asked questions will be and you can address them. So just something to consider when you're thinking about delivery. Then also when it comes to the how, like, who are you, what feels good to you? Again, we're building a business that we would love to run, right? It's our business. We have to do the work. Might as well love the work that we're doing, right? So that's why I asked you in your pre-work, are you a behind the camera or in front of the camera kind of girl? Do you like writing or do you like speaking? Are you techie? Are you non-techie, right? Are you a big crowd or small crowd of people? Do you like in person? Do you not? None of us can really do in person now, but you get my drift. Are you a marathoner or a sprinter when it comes to your energy and workflow, right? So we talked about time. For me, I work in bursts. I'm actually, I'm a sprinter on the bike as well. And I work in bursts of energy with my work as well. So understanding that about yourself will help you to choose the best method of delivery for yourself, right? You don't have to do all the things. Just like the 7 million people, you don't have to work with all of them. You can't work with all of them. The same thing goes with how you choose to deliver things in your business. You cannot do all of the ways, and I'm going to show you some of them in a few minutes. You can't do all of them. So which ones do you want to do? Which ones do you want to focus on? And again, this is what you want. This is your business. Nobody is forcing you or making you do anything. And this is a good thing because you get to decide what lights you up. You have to do the work. Might as well enjoy it. So we're going into another. This is going to be a quick and easy one. Should be anyway. Of the following, of these here, I want you to take a look at these and ask yourself, based on your personal preference, what would you rather create? There are no wrong answers, just your answers. Okay. When you have your answer, excuse me, let's just take a couple of minutes with this. When you have your answer, let's put them in the chat. Again, we're just giving answers based on gut today. You can always change as you grow and as you get more information, as you get more support. Which one of these feels good? Let's do 2 answers. What feels good and like fun right now to create? And what feels like something that you would consider or would like to grow into creating? So I need 2 answers. First, and it could be the same. It could be the same. But now and a future answer. Because sometimes I want to do a really big conference, but you need more, you need to have quite a few things in place for that. Awesome. So Jennifer wants to do a live event. Lisa wants to do a coaching program. Now, what would you do later? Okay, and we're rather create a coaching program, conference video. Alexis, she'd rather create a coaching program, conference, video, webinar. That is a lot. And I'm going to say this with a disclaimer. Alexis is one of my clients and she's been doing this for a while. So she has a lot of things already created. Please do not think that you need to be doing all of it.
For whatever reason, I thought they were like a live event or a coaching program, a conference or a podcast. So I picked like one from each.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Okay, do over.
Okay. So you just pick like one. Which would you rather create
just pick one because we can't do too many things. We can't do all the things. Which if you
okay, I mean you have the same thing.
Right. You have right. Okay. Well, I couldn't put them all on the same page, but you only have so much time.
Got it. Okay. Sorry.
Right. and to be fair, even if you started and you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, like how effective would you be at doing 5 things? Live meetup before, coaching is next, online. Okay. Coaching program now, podcast later. Good move. And Jensen, you know what? You can be a guest on podcasts now. That's what I did first. I had to keep sitting on my hands, but I love running my mouth, as you can see. So if you love the idea of a podcast, you actually can do it now. You just don't have to produce the whole thing. You can be a guest on podcasts. It's really a great way to actually get clients for that coaching program that you want to do. Lisa Folden wants to do a live event now and a conference later. Alexa's coaching program and then next a conference. Love it. Okay, do we have everybody? Alicia was doing live events, meetups, coaching program next, and then online coaching program in the future. And did I hear? And Jennifer, live event and later an online course. Yep. And that's the really good thing about doing these live events, Jennifer, is that you do the live event and then you can have somebody edit everything and then sell it as a course. So a 2-for-1. I want to check in with everybody. We're at about the 2-hour mark. And what I want to do is, before we go into this next section on, let's just show you the next section on where and how to find clients. I want to give us a little bit of a break to stretch, to stand up, to drink some water, to go to the restroom. So let's meet back here at 45. So we got about 9 minutes. I don't have to worry about everybody standing in line for the bathroom because everybody's at their own house. So let's meet back here at 11:45 and we'll dive into the question of where and how to find your favorite clients. Okie dokie. Hopefully everybody stood up, stretched, did something. Let's see. Yes, it's a yes. Right, ginseng. There's always, so that's one of the things I'm glad we mentioned that for ginseng was talking about, which is a great segue into our next section, because there are some things that we think we want to do, that we could do, that we don't actually have to do ourselves to still participate in. So let me just check in with everybody. Are you all starting to get some ideas as to where your ideal clients might be? Either by show of hands or you can type in the chat. Oh yeah, Alexis is posting in the group that yes, awesome. Right, so Lisa's got some ideas about, now that she's narrowed down where to find her clients, her ideal clients. Jennifer is finding going to D1 facilities, high schools. Yep. So we're going to talk about where to find clients because that's the big thing. The first part was what we did. Like, it is very hard when you're talking to everybody, and I'm just going to pick on you a little bit, Lisa, here. When you're talking about women that are overwhelmed, it's like, well, they're everywhere. But if we talk about women with young kids, thank you for that permission, Lisa. If we're talking about women with young kids that have some specific either weight challenges or health challenges, now I know where to go find these people. At a very minimum, if she said school age kids, I might go to a PTA meeting. Okay, again, some of this we have to take with a COVID grain of salt, but you get the idea. If we can get very specific about who it is and what challenges, now all of a sudden the world opens up. If we're talking about school age kids, then maybe we're going to PTA meetings. If we're talking about D1 athletes, maybe we're going to those schools, or maybe we're partnering with recruiters. Maybe we're getting on podcasts where they are talking about maximizing performance, right? So if your specialty is minimizing injury in the D1 athletes, maybe, Jennifer, you're going to a podcast where they're talking about maximizing performance for D1 athletes. And so what you have to say is not in competition with them at all. It's really a partnership, because they do, just like the exercise physiologists, they do their thing over there and you do your thing over here. And both of you all are talking to the same group of people. So in your case, Ginseng, if we're talking about guest podcasts, now that you're getting more specific about people who have recently been diagnosed with the diabetes or the blood pressure, like, where might they be hanging out? What kind of information are they looking for or researching, or who are they listening to right now? And how can you add to the conversation but put your spin on things? So the big question is where and how to find people. And I put this diagram up here. It's from the Digital Marketer. It is something that's been circulated a whole bunch of times. Don't worry about that you can't see it. What I want you to notice is the complexity of it. And this is why everybody is confused and overwhelmed and stuck and spinning out and having difficulty making decisions, because the digital marketers of the world, who have a lot of money, who have figured out how to get in front of the masses, make it seem like we need to be doing all of these things and have the big, long, complicated funnels with the upsells and the downsales and the cross sales and all of this. And I'm saying, if you are here and you want to be an expert, a specialist in your field, and you want to work deep with people, like really go there with them, like Ivory's going to do with her people, you don't need to be speaking to the masses. Again, you can't work with everybody. So what's that magic number for you? How many people can you realistically work with? How many do you want to work with? And can you find those people? You don't need to do all of this to work with the number of people that you need. Okay, so want to talk about, so that you can actually read them, some of the marketing tactics that are available to us. And just so we have here, there's paid advertising, organic, social media is a big thing for people. You do not have to be on social media. All I'm doing here is giving you some ideas about the various tactics or methods that you can use to get your name out there, to share your solution with people. And what I'd love to, if we can, talk about how to take this big complicated thing, because we're not trying to build a big corporation or conglomerate of things. We're building a lifestyle business. We're building something that we run, we manage. So if you're trying to do, which is why I was giggling about my miscommunication of what in the delivery, what would you rather create? We can't effectively create all of those things. So if you look at all of these tactics in front of you, again, I'm going to ask you to go back and which one of them would you like to create? We cannot do all of them effectively with the time, money, energy, current personnel support that we have, personnel of one, right? So what would you love doing? And can you be brave enough to choose two things and just really work it? Because we know that if you pick that one thing and you figure out how to do it and do it well, it's going to be so much better than you trying to do this when it's just one of you, right? So if you just pick a couple of things on this list, then you only have to learn one new skill or two new skills. Then you only have to come up with one or maybe two softwares. You only have to do a couple of things versus trying to do all of this like a huge corporation with a number of people managing all of these parts, right? So Steve Gordon talks about going small to go big, right? And that's what we were talking about in the last segment, where I said, hey, we need to really tighten that up, right? Because once you tighten up who you're talking to, now we can just go all in on that, and we can find all the things where we can find these people, and we can really be effective. Because I don't know about you, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to make a change in some people's lives. And when we realize that in order to really go big and make a big change in our lives as business owners and in the lives of people that we're aiming to touch, we really need to get specific. Now, I will say that again with the caveat that after we go specific, then we can broaden back out. Like once you get your foothold, let's say I'm going to take you, Jennifer, for example. Let's say once you get your foothold in the D1 division thing, then maybe you can say, okay, we got our D1 division process down pat. Now we're going to go to the pros, or now we're going to specialize in AAU basketball, right? So thinking about it in that way, go small to go big. Because when we try to go big and we don't have enough resources to support that, we just end up spinning our wheels and not being really effective at all. So that is definitely a mind shift that we have to make. So let's talk about, we're about to go into another work session, and I need to give you the link for, oh good. I did something right. I didn't lose my screen. Everyone, I'm going to give you this link here. It's for the 15 ways to find the clients. And what I'd like for everybody to do over the next, where are we at? Let's take 10 minutes. We'll take 10 minutes. Everybody open up the 15 ways to find clients workbook. And I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself as you go through each one of those things. Again, you do not have to do any of them. I'm looking for your choice A and choice B. That's all I want you to come away from this with. A choice A and a choice B in terms of, okay, we know who we're talking to, we know what we're helping them with. Now, where are we going to find them? And these questions here that I have on the screen are going to help you evaluate the various shiny objects that are going to come your way, right? Because the marketers are not going to stop marketing to us. But how do we process the ideas and opportunities that come our way is to make sure that we're asking ourselves questions like this rather than, oh, it's cheap, or, oh, they said you got to do it by next week, right? Put it against the question of, why am I doing that? And do I like my reasons for doing it? Does it fit into my overall strategy, right? Does it align with my 10-year goal? Would I still want to be doing this? Or will this be a stepping stone to what I'm trying to do within the next 10 years? And does it fit my personality, strengths, and skills? Does it fit my personality, strengths, and skills? Because sometimes we're trying to shoehorn ourselves into something that doesn't fit. If it's okay if you don't like to do certain things. That's why there are multiple ways to get the job done. And I'm going to give you 2 other questions to think about besides these when you're thinking about any marketing strategies or business models to consider. What does this require to execute and sustain? Now, remember, if you're a team of 1, if you add something in, do you have the resources, the skills to execute it right now? And it's fine if you don't, and it's something that you are really jazzed about doing and you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do it. Just understand that it will require skills, maybe support, software, what have you, to execute. And can you sustain it if it's something that has to go on? Like every time I looked at doing a podcast before, I was like, nope, can't sustain it. I might be able to do one, but I can't sustain it. I don't have the bandwidth for me to edit and do all of that, nor do I want to learn that skill. So now that I have interns that do it, now we do the podcast because I can execute and sustain it, right? And then, do I want to do that? This is your business. I'm going to always take you back to that question. Do I want to do that? Why am I doing that? Do I want to do that? Do I like my reasons? Okay. And to the question, let's see. So as everybody looks through there, I would love for you to put in the chat, what's your A choice and what's your B choice? Keep in mind your ideal client. Your ideal client also has to be there. Oops, somebody got kicked out.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What are we supposed to do? Um, I I picked the top 2 ways that I focus on finding new clients. And what are we doing with the questions to ask yourself?
Whenever a new opportunity comes your way, as Facebook loves to present us with,
Mm-hmm.
just want to run these questions by yourself before you consider.
Gotcha.
I think it just helps us stay grounded in what we're trying to do and focus inside rather than what everybody else's agenda is for us.
Do you have a second? Can you click back to the marketing tactics slide? I know you said you're going to send it to us. I know. I know.
So studious.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. Lisa brings up a good point. If you have something that you are thinking about and you're just like, I don't know, go ahead and put it in your choices, and um, we can talk about why you may or may not consider it. Okay. I think we got everybody now, so we just go top to bottom. Alexis, you're using social media, Ask Me Anything, online community, right? Facebook, surveys, and live events. And you also recently did a virtual event. Is that right?
Yes. But like in terms of like my preferred ways to find new clients, those were the top two.
Okay. Yes. Okay, cool. Any questions about, I mean, I know you're rocking and rolling because we've been working together a while now. Any questions, thoughts, or anything about those two ways? You feel pretty solid in them?
No, I think I'm good for right now. Like I'm just always growing and learning new ways. I know not to ask for emails in the comment field anymore.
That was crazy.
That was
I'm
crazy.
surprised so many people were willing to put their email on public display for
everybody to see.
Oh
So,
my gosh. That was so funny. Okay, so
um,
real quick, now you got to tell people because they're like, what happened?
so I was like questioning whether or not I was going to launch basically like a new program. And so I posted in one of my like online forums that I participate in. I just posted like, what was the question? Who would want a copy of my like free exercise card for improving like dancer strength, basically. And I put comment with your email below, and I got 691 emails.
Insane.
And then I couldn't figure out, like, there's no way to quickly capture all of those emails as individual comments. So I had to go back and I stayed up until like 2:30 in the morning and made a landing page email collector because I was expecting maybe 50 emails max, and I was going to have my assistant just pull those emails. But I had to make a landing page email collector at the last minute and then repost that. We got so many email requests. Could you please now go to this landing page, which is cool because it ended up being a double opt-in to see who was really interested. And I got 145 people to actually go to the landing page and do the email.
Alicia, she's talking about one of the Facebook groups that she participates in, just like with your hiking groups that you participate in.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, you've been rocking and rolling there. Who is next? Lisa Folden. We got social media and podcast. So again, let's get a little bit more specific because social media is broad. So specifically, I want you to write down, Lisa, or actually come on for me. Social media, what specifically do you plan to do on social media?
Oh, I thought it was more so what I've been doing, but yeah, social media for me is typically Instagram, because I just enjoy that platform more. So for me, it's really just engaging posts and then IGTV videos and lives. And I'm trying to transmit some of my IGTV stuff over to YouTube just so it's on a whole nother platform as well. But yeah, I do a lot of social media in general on Instagram. And the thing I was considering is starting to broaden my Facebook platform by creating a group of some type because I don't do much on Facebook. I just mirror everything from Instagram to my Facebook. But my other preferred way is to, do interviews on podcasts or television. I feel like I get more feedback and more potential clients and people reaching out to me when they hear my voice or see me. So
I think those are really good things to pay attention to. And I noticed that too. It's like, okay, it's one thing to have a number of followers on any platform, but then it's another to be like if you don't, here's a pro tip. If you haven't already done this, however people schedule consultations with you, make sure one of your questions is, how did you hear about me or this consultation? Because that's going to give you some insight as to where the potential clients are coming from versus just the stalkers and the fans, right? So where did you come from? Because then that'll tell you where you need to be going back to do more stuff, right? Where we don't have a whole lot of time. So where do we need to spend it is where the potential clients are coming from. All right. So in your case, I saw you do media with the local television and you like doing the podcast, and that's where you're getting potential clients from. So that tells me that that's where you need to spend time versus a Facebook group. And so in addition to the questions that I put here, really think about all of you as you're doing stuff and you're asking people and you notice like, where did you come to me from again? How did we meet? How did you hear about me? Oh, I need to do more of that.
Yeah, I do. And I do that with my physical therapy patients, but it's just a different format. And they're always like Google or my friend referred me, type thing. So yeah, for the more of a coaching platform, then definitely.
Right. So really, I think you have it down to just IG will let you push stuff to Facebook and just let that be that. Since you enjoy, that was key. You said you enjoy it. And that's where you do most of it anyway. Those will be your two, kind of like three, podcasts and TV, since it's pretty much the same thing. You're not necessarily preparing for it. You're getting up there and just doing your thing. Now, what you could consider, because the IG is stuff that you put out into the world, you could look at what is your, like being more intentional about getting the podcast interviews and the television spots. So that's something. And now that you're getting more honed in and specific about who it is that you would love to have a full roster of, what podcast or what shows or media would they be on? What kind of interviews are they already listening to? And then you go out and be intentional about getting on, pitching those or getting on those.
Gotcha.
And so I would say when it comes to, I got to echo. When it comes to your guest spots, to try to aim for one a month.
Yeah, that is my goal, actually, 1 month. Yes.
Okay. Cool beans. We got Alicia. Alicia, you have your 2 ways to find clients, Facebook groups, and podcast. And I think you're doing the same thing. You're in a bigger Facebook group or 2, and then you have your own Facebook group. And then you've been a guest on podcasts. So I know you've been working on a pitch like a pitching schedule, and I would even venture to say the same goal. Can you get on at least one a month? So that way, because what I found with the podcast is they already have a bigger audience, but it is true what Lisa said, is something about when people can hear you and they can hear more about your personality and your story, they kind of start to like you, and the credibility behind what you say, and whoever's platform that you're already on, they're lending you some of their credibility. So it's different, kind of like where Lisa was saying, you know, it's a referral from a friend. Well, in this case, if this person has established a lot of credibility with their podcast over time, it's like a referral from an expert, an authority, or something like that, even if it's not necessarily a friend. So it just ups the ante a little bit in that area. Any questions, challenges, thoughts, Alicia, about your 2 ways?
No, I'm good. I mean, I have been doing about a podcast a month. That's how it's kind of panned out. And no, I'm just moving forward as, you know, as we've talked about.
Okay. We got Jennifer. I have questions. It says social media and being creative with it. Can you help me understand a little bit? Uh-oh, did I lose her? I think we lost Jennifer. Okay, I'll come back if she pops back in. Looks like we lost her. Ginseng, you're up. Says top 2 ways: physician referrals and print material marketing. Website, YouTube, videos, maybe.
I'm trying. Okay, I had trouble unmuting myself. I added to that I have a lot to learn and I love all the ideas. But I like the Facebook member group. I think that's a good way to get in contact with people who are interested. And I added the being a guest on podcasts. I love that. But I think because the group that I'm looking for are recently diagnosed, working to get referrals from physicians because they're more open to coaching now, I feel like that might be a good way to get clients. And leaving them
referrals, right? Okay.
Like leaving them brochures and, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's one way for sure. So you have physician referrals, leaving brochures, website, YouTube videos, maybe, but then you also have Facebook group and podcast.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So if I look at, oh shoot, how many back is that? If we look back here, so written, visual, audio, which one were you? Which one do you prefer?
Written.
Or have a lean towards?
Audio, maybe.
Okay.
Or written. I mean, I'm kind of both between
Audio.
written and audio.
Okay, and of all of these things that you listed here, which would lend itself to that?
The brochures are written.
Okay. And then the guest podcast.
Yeah, then that's audio. So it's the written and the podcasts.
Okay, and tell me, had you thought about a blog?
Yes, but when I look at blogs, I'm always like, they're so messy. There's so much on there. Like, oh, it needs to be cleaned up or something when I look at them. And maybe I just haven't looked at good ones. So
I think Alicia has a good one.
Okay. Okay.
Alicia, if you'll put your link in the chat for her, please. And then also, right. So that's one of the things, like, okay, what ticks you off and what breaks your heart?
Okay.
Remember that question?
Hmm.
You like to write, but it ticks you off that everything you see is so messy.
Yes.
So how about you just create one that's not messy?
Okay. I like that.
Right? And then when you go on the guest podcast, then you can refer them to your blog.
And referring to a blog is different than referring someone to your website?
Tomato, sort of.
Okay.
So back in the day, the blogs were hosted by, there were sites that were just for blogs.
Okay.
And now many people just put the blog on their website.
Okay, got it. It's as a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then the other thing is you can so here's another. You can guest blog for other platforms.
Oh, okay.
So that might be a good way for you to start. Guest podcast, guest blog.
Yes.
For example, Mind Body Green. Yeah, Mind Body Green is a health kind of website that accepts guest posts.
Okay.
So you don't even have to figure out how to create a website and integrate the blog on your website. You can just go find publications, go find blogs that are already out there that are not messy, that you respect, and you can ask them if you can write for them. That's the same thing as the guest podcast. It's credible because you're now you can just tell people on, let's say, for example, your LinkedIn contributor to mindbodygreen.com.
Oh, okay.
Right? So you don't have to come up with any kind of tech. You don't have to figure any of that out. You just write whatever you want to write as long as it's relevant to that platform. And you're off and running. And you got way more people reading that than when you start your own blog.
Right. I might never start a blog or a podcast if that's the case, because that wouldn't be bad for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also an option for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got your two. I would start there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Where are we at? Okay. Jennifer's back on, I think. So I need more information. We say social media and being creative with it. Have your teenager help. Your clients are teens and young adults, and they are all moving from Facebook. I'm assuming they're doing TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like somehow maybe start creating good TikToks, but obviously not myself because they don't like to look at adults. It's an interesting, they've got MySpace, and so it's really they don't go on Facebook at all. They can't stand Facebook. They don't even like Instagram anymore. They don't like Twitter. So for their clientele, really try, figure out where these kids are, and you've got to reach them that way when
so
using social media.
Let me just challenge that for a second. Do we have to who's paying for this? Who's paying for it? Do we have to reach the kids, or who are we looking at? Is your ideal client the kid itself, or is it other people like the exercise physiologist, the coach, the recruiter?
No, sure. So in the elite athlete, in today's children athletes, they really dictate their parents. If they say, I need this, the parents give it to them. It's a fascinating environment. Parenting does not occur with elite athletes. So if I'm going to use any form of social media, it has to be aimed at the kid. However, when I use more the live stuff, those parents are really helicopter parents. So when their children are in doing group workouts, those parents are all sitting there monitoring closely. And what we're thinking is, I then pull those parents away and start educating the parents on basic things. Do you want your football player to run faster? Well, it's basic. They need hip range of motion. And start educating them on small things and saying, and start teaching them about how we're going to work together. And then I'm also already doing education seminars with the exercise physiologist to identify injuries or situations where they can see, wait a minute, that kid's, something's going on. You need to go get evaluated by the PT. And then I do short 15-minute screenings that are free of charge.
Okay. So you got two things going on there.
So social media will most probably not be a biggie for me. It's going to be more the absolute live interaction because D1 already has the clientele. I just need to bridge the clientele to me because it's one of the only facilities in our entire area, and children's sport is insane.
Yeah, I can imagine.
These kids are 12 years old and they're mini professional athletes. It's unbelievable what their days involve.
So I think you just answered one of mine and probably one of your own questions. Like, if social media is going to be that much of a hassle for you, I wouldn't even waste time. I wouldn't even waste time on that.
Okay, because the live education stuff is on both the exercise physiologists and the parents almost probably going to be the biggest thing. Because children are not good to make them sit still and listen.
Correct. So you have an interesting dynamic going on where it's not your ideal client. So here's an interesting thing to consider. Your ideal client is not actually the D1 athlete. Your client is who's paying for this. That's why I asked you that question. Is it going to be the parent? It really sounds like your ideal client is somewhere in between the parent and the bridging the gap, those people that attend your live sessions. Those are your ideal clients. So then that means that that makes me think that when you do your survey, when we're talking about your power statement, you need to be talking to the people that you would be talking to in those seminars.
Okay.
Sometimes we think the ideal client, yes, you are helping the student do X, Y, and Z, right? You're doing that. But when you are positioning your marketing and your message, you still need to be talking to the people that will be in those live conferences because they're the ones paying, right? So that's going to dictate your messaging. And that's also why we kicked out social media because.
Sure. Yeah, no, there's no way to reach them. No.
So tell me a little bit about this statement here. He said, secondly, you will offer free talks to different sports communities on basics to improve the athlete, not enough that when they leave with knowledge, but enough to whet their appetite. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I've used Meetup a lot. Like we have Meetup hiking groups, we have Meetup social running groups, we have Meetup cycling groups, and I do all of that. So I will, join the groups when they have their occasional barbecue, or afterwards they gather for a couple of minutes. I'll just do a little, the leader will let me do a little bit of a talk, but it's just enough to make them go, oh, wait a minute, I want to know more about that. How could that benefit me? And it's pretty neat. Like the cycling group will go on an hour, 2-hour ride, and you just monitor the cyclist because, as physical therapists, we have a really bad habit of evaluating people all the time. And then it's easy to just adapt your talk afterwards to something small that you saw, and beans, anything like that. And then done enough they can actually even do it themselves. Make sure that it's something they have to come to you for.
Okay, so with the different sports communities, so now what is the purpose of that? And how does that relate to the work that we were talking about before?
Okay, so obviously I'm going to have D1 athletes as well, but our plan is also for me to bring outsiders in of more the, the adults that are staying fit doing basic racing. They still race as masters or stuff like that, but bringing clients like that in as well. And then the aim is to transfer them to D1. So, you know, we want to help each other out growing the business.
Okay, so more than one division, kind of like Alexis has a clinic and an education. So you would have
Yes.
one in a fit, you know,
Yeah,
recreational.
yeah, no.
Gotcha. I was like, I'm confused how the two work. So basically, your method is free talks,
Yeah, free talks. Yeah.
but it just comes to two different types of people.
No, totally. And then it comes down to the time thing. You got to start small and grow, like you
Right.
were saying. So, you know, you start with the easy pickings, and then you start branching out.
Right. So if you're already like, that's in your wheelhouse. That's your strength already, doing these free talks. You're used to doing, people are used to seeing you at the barbecues, on the rides, on the runs, whatever. So just keep doing that. I would double down on that, and then look at
Okay.
how can you do that more consistently and more intentionally, instead of it just being happenstance. Like, okay, you know, you're going to go on Meetup whenever we can get back to what we were doing.
Uh-huh.
And you see that you have one for June, July, and August, but you don't have anything for September, October, November, December. Like, be intentional. I want to do one of these or two of these a month,
Okay.
and then start. So that way, you know, you always have something going, where you're not doing this. Okay, I was visible and I was doing my marketing. I got some clients, and then I don't have any clients. And then I
Sure.
got to be visible, and then I have no clients.
And then the other big thing is to, like you touched on it right in the beginning, is to figure out the balance about when you actually kick off the clinic. And because obviously, you know, I've got to figure out that balance, that when I open doors, there is people there already.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you have not launched yours yet.
No, I haven't launched it yet.
Right. So that's why yours, everything that we're doing today, all of this work and the decisions that we're making are so that now you can go out and do the work of do all the talks, like do all of those things. I was active in Facebook groups for at least, I want to say, 3 months.
Okay.
And got friendly with the moderators and admins of the Facebook groups, so that when I was ready to launch my first program, and I said, hey, is it okay to share with your group? One person said, I'll write an article with you. One said, come do a talk. And another one said, I'll interview you. Right.
Okay.
But that was because I was clear about who I was trying to reach, and I was active and helpful in those groups way before I asked them to do anything.
Okay.
So you're in the right space. I would just say, be more intentional, look at, okay, right now, if you don't have any clients, then maybe instead of one a month, your aim is to get one a week.
Sure.
Right. And then because there's a period of time, I usually think 60 to 90 days, when we're being active and doing marketing, to when it actually results in dollars. So
Okay.
think about doing all of these things. Since you don't have any clients, do all the marketing things right now, get used to it, get some kind of system going. So then once when you open the door and the clients start coming, then you can say, okay, I'm not doing one a week, but I know at a minimum, I want to be doing one of these a month. So you don't have that up and down and up and down and up and down.
Okay. That sounds good.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Make sure I got everybody. Okay. Good. We got everybody. So on to the next part. So now we know where to find the clients, right? And we talked we're still working through the base elements. We know where to find the clients. Then we got to help them with the next part. So let me just ask you all, what are some of your biggest questions or concerns when it comes to selling in your business? If you can just pop in the chat, what are some of your biggest questions or concerns when it comes to selling in your business? Jennifer, can you come unmute for a second? Your question is, what is the fine line of too much or too little? What do you mean by that?
So sometimes I feel like I do peer encapsulation supplements as well, and I never know whether you're actually being too pushy and offensive to the person, even though you know it's something that would greatly benefit. Like all of us women over 25 should be on DHEA, but I never know what is too much or too little. How do you bring it into the conversation? It's easy to sell PT products. It's always, to me, hard to sell the secondary PT products, even trying to convince a person to buy a TheraBand. And I never know, I sometimes feel like I'm selling too much, and I never quite know what is that fine line.
Why do you think it's easy for you to sell PT and not easy for you to sell the other things that you mentioned?
Because I really think I do a phenomenal job with hands-on PT. It's something I've really done extensive amount of training in. So I have a lot of confidence in that, and I don't mind and I do cash-based, so I don't mind charging the person for the service I'm providing. But I sometimes am too conscious of spending people's money. I feel bad that, you just came in and paid $80 for your session, plus I want to sell you a $15 supplement.
So why don't you just charge them $95 and just give it to them?
And automatically include it in all that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And maybe do it with the critical one, and when they like it, and ask about more products and a more complete supplement, then you can go into more detail. So do the enticing thing again.
Well, it's not really. So I think it's really the language that you're using and the way that you're thinking about it that's hemming you up.
Yeah, no, definitely.
The words entice and convince.
Okay.
That's how you think about the TheraBand and the DHEA. But when you talked about physical therapy, you said the word value.
Yeah, no, I sometimes feel I'm a person that does a lot of pro bono, which is a bad thing. So I feel like I always just want to give everyone everything, and I feel bad about charging. And I need to really work around that, because ultimately I need to pay the rent, the water, electricity, and put food on the table for myself.
Mm-hmm. So what if you are like, you want to help everybody, but you're still helping people when you charge them?
Mm-hmm. No, totally.
Right. So, and we'll go, I think that's thank you for coming on and being willing to share that, because that's a very important. And I know you're not the only one that thinks that way. We're going to keep working on that, because so what we're doing today is we're working on a lot of the decision points that have been keeping people stuck. And I think you all have, like, some of the stuff that you all are talking about doing now, I'm like, oh, piece of cake. Y'all are going to be, if you stay the course, I could see all the clients that you can have. However, you find the clients, you get in front of them, you do your song, your dance, you talk about what you see when you're on the ride, and then it comes time to say, okay, now pay me. And if you get hemmed up and you still have certain thoughts in your mind, you're still going to be a little bit stuck. So let's see, Lisa's saying you want to figure out how to make her message clear to the potential clients. Part of that clarity comes from specificity. So what we were talking about, the overwhelmed all the women versus women of school-age children that are overwhelmed with all of the needs to balance between homeschooling now and working out, for example. So understand how to market physical therapy and health wellness coaching. I'm going to, let me make a note to send you all the conversation that I had with the attorney. What she recommends, and the long and short of it, is keep physical therapy and health wellness coaching separate, period. You can have on your thing, because you even said, Lisa, when we spoke, that there are people that come to you for rehab physical therapy, and there are people that come to you for health and wellness coaching. And it could be 2 buttons on your website. If this is your problem, or this is what you want to work on with me, weight loss, whatever, click here. If you have an injury or something, click here, separate the two. And that helps with the liability. They did not recommend different LLCs. They just recommended that you be clear and specific when a person is working with you. You have your physical therapy stuff, and if they're working with you for coaching, you have separate disclaimers and things saying, hey, I have a background in physical therapy, but you are receiving coaching. If you, like, I am not entering in that kind of relationship with you. So I'm going to put the link, the interview, and then also the link with the consultation. All of my clients get a free consultation with my attorney as opposed to having to pay the fee. So that is an option for you too. So you can ask all of the very specific questions that you have about separating healthcare and coaching. So really, in my mind, sales is exactly like what we were talking about before. The client has the problem. We have a solution. Selling them is helping them to move forward so that they can act on the solution, right? Even though they have a problem, even though you have the solution, if you don't sell it to them, even if it is free, they cannot take you up on that offer. And I think part of the challenge that a number of us have with sales is we think that we're not selling if we're giving our goodies away for free. And it is very much like if any of y'all have walked in a mall with the people in the teriyaki chicken, and you're like, no, I don't want that right now, right? They had to sell you on taking them up on their free offer of the teriyaki chicken. Right? Just because it's free doesn't mean people want to eat it. That doesn't mean people want the calories, the sugar, or whatever. And just because you give somebody a free consultation doesn't mean that they want it, because then they have to, in their mind, make that decision around the value of trading their time. Remember, that's that resource we can't get back, to be there, to do that thing. So even if we think that if we give it to people for free, no, because how many of y'all have had parties and people are at free party, you're providing the food, the drink, all of that, and it's free, and people even RSVP and say, yes, I'm coming, and then they don't come because they don't value the party over their time or whatever the other option is that they have for doing. So I would love for y'all to, if you can, get that out of your brain, that just because you give it away for free means people are going to take you up on it. We are always selling, always. When I'm in the hospital and people are sick and they got tubes and they got their stomach cut open and all of that, and they definitely don't want to get out of that bed, even though they don't see that they're paying for it right then. So there's no exchange of money at that time. I am selling them on the idea of getting out of the bed. And here's why, because I know the value of it, even though they don't feel good, they don't want to, they're not motivated. And so what I would challenge you all to think about is, if you have no problem selling physical therapy or occupational therapy or whatever your healthcare profession is, if you have no problem selling that, ask yourself why. Why don't I have a problem selling that? And whatever you say, because, and then whatever you say after that, see if you can associate the thing that you're having trouble selling with that. Okay, so I don't have a problem selling physical therapy, but I have a problem selling coaching because, whatever the answer is. Right. That would be what you need to focus on. And then that makes it less awkward for you. And then you know when to draw the line, right? Between what's too little, what's too much. Even for me, when I was working in, and I get to a point where there are certain patients that they are adamant about they're not getting out of bed, even though I am super clear about the value of them getting out, you start to know, okay, for whatever reason, don't push this person. And I believe, Jennifer, the only way I got to that point was thousands of hours of feedback. You just go into the room and you talk to them about it and the value, and you look at their face and you look at their body language and you look at, you know, their past medical history, and you start to get feedback about what you can say or how you can interact with this person to help them see the value. And that's what sales is for me. Sales is helping people solve their problems, but see the value in your service, your product, your process. So if we are here and our main function as business owners is to solve problems, how do you actually sell? And I'm just going to give you a simple way to think about this. Since we're all in healthcare, we all have to write and think in SOAP notes. So subjective, objective, assessment, plan, right? I remember asking, I don't know if she's still on here or not, one of my clients, how do you go about doing an evaluation, a therapy evaluation? And she just started spitting it out. And I was like, bingo. Because what we do in our evaluations is essentially what we need to do in a sales conversation one-on-one. What is the subjective of the person in front of us? What is their problem? How are they experiencing it? What is it keeping them from doing, right? What are their pain points? You hear them talk about that, but I want you to think about it in terms of your therapy evaluation to kind of make it make a little more sense to you. Then objectively, is there anything objective that you can point to? Like Alexis is always talking about how they can do better splits and how can they touch your toe? Like they can't do that. These are objective measurements. What is the assessment, right? After you collected all of the data, what do you think the problem is, right? So as I was going through today, I was asking you certain questions. So I'm like, oh, I see what the problem is. You're trying to do too much, or you're using too many words, things like that. So what is your assessment? And then what will the plan be? The plan will be work with you in whatever way it is that you work with people. That's the simplest form of sales. It does not have to be scary. It does not have to be scary. It's the exact same thing that we do when we do evaluation. Okay, good. Jennifer says, makes so much sense. I like that, and do more education and become more comfortable with my other products. Correct. And then I love what Alexis, who's one of my clients, does. She just what I told you, she just wraps it into the price of her evaluations. They get a kit with all of the things that she knows they will need to be effective at doing their home exercise program at home. It's part of the evaluation. It's part of helping them. Don't make it difficult for people to do stuff with you. Just give it to them, but put it into the cost of the evaluation. Easy. All right. So we just finished doing a lot of the heavy lifting. By now, you should have a better idea about what you do and who you do it for. If you go back to those things I asked you to write, you should have some business hours. You should have a better idea of what you do and who you do it for. So your power statement, and I know some of y'all are still kind of working out the kinks. If you've been working on it a little bit more at the time, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll use whatever remaining time to tighten it up a little bit. You know, what problem that people have that they are aware of, how they talk about it a little bit more, or how to find out. You have your initial 2 ways that you're going to go find your favorite clients. And we talked about how to move them from a potential client to a paying client, and some of the things that keep us stuck in here from actually doing this, right? So you have business hours, power statement, marketing strategy, delivery method. You've chosen 1 or 2 of those, and then the sales format, SOAP, right? So where do people, now that we've done this heavy lifting, you've gotten all of these decisions, don't freak out. I'm just warning you ahead of time. You're going to possibly freak out. You're possibly going to self-doubt after we leave here. You're probably going to try to change it 2 or 3 times. You're going to run it by somebody and they're not going to quite get it. And I don't want you to think that you made a mistake, that you did something wrong. It's feedback. just like when we first started working with patients. I remember when I started doing manual therapy and I was getting certified, and I was like, when I was in the class with the professor and I was holding my hands like this, and they were like, you got that glide? And I'm like, okay, I got it, right? And I'm in class. And then I go out Monday morning and try to do it with the first patient. I'm like, this person's head is bigger. It's not, something's not right. I can't quite get it. That's your opportunity to just say, I just haven't practiced enough. It's not the time to be like, oh, I shouldn't have been doing that anyway. No, it just takes practice. It just takes practice and feedback. And the only way to get that is to actually keep doing it. Take what you got and then apply it again, get the feedback, and see how can you tweak it to make it better the next time. Okay. So people get messed up in the execution. And how and why do people get messed up in the execution? I believe 100% it's our mindset. Just a few minutes ago, we talked about how our thoughts about selling can keep us from being effective at selling. Okay. What should you be doing day to day in your business? So we created a bit of a schedule, but what should you do day to day? These are the master elements. 100% you should be working on your mindset. What are your thoughts about your client, potential clients, your program, your whatever? You should be working on your mindset there. In terms of your strategy, if there are any skills that you need to gain in order to execute that strategy. Jensen, we talked about doing podcasts. If you don't know how to pitch to get on a podcast, or you don't know how to pitch to be a guest blogger, then that's a skill that you need to learn. I know you know how to write, but you need to learn the skill of pitching, right? So that's something that you can put down. You don't need to learn all the things. You just need to learn that skill. And that's how you can be very specific about how to spend your time. Okay. And then of course, like, do you need any support? Somebody asked about the 15 ways to find clients. I did not make that. I don't know how to do that. So I was like, I know how to write the content. So what support do you need? I needed a designer to help me fully execute this, right? And then what else? What keeps people from actually taking off in their business is a lack of consistency. So we see this even with our clients, our patients. People know what to do, they're just not doing it, or they're not doing it consistently enough, or not with enough effort, right? And why? Maybe it's time, things have changed quite a bit, but it's most likely mindset. So let's go back to the question I asked you during the survey that I sent ahead of time. The question was, I asked you to fill out this statement. My biggest fear about starting this business is, and we got some responses like putting precious time, energy, and money into a flop or fear of failure. My biggest fear that some people put was, I don't know what I'm doing. Another fear that people had was not making enough money or not making any money. Okay. And so this is where you are right now, the freak out. If any of you all have heard me talk, you know that in the beginning, there is some discomfort that causes us to want more, whether it is we are not liking being an employee anymore. We want to go and have our own business, or we have a business, but we know we're supposed to touch more people. We're supposed to help more people. So there's some discomfort in that. And when we actually make the commitment to do something, there's a freak out that occurs. And we have to invoke some courage to take the first step. But I just mentioned consistency is key in getting feedback and getting better, and knowing clarity and competence, what to do and how to do it. That's where your confidence comes from. So how do we move past fear when the freak out occurs? This is a thought model that I got from Brooke Castillo, where I was certified at the Life Coach School. And in the model, we think about it like this. What we think about any circumstance or situation determines our results. So our circumstance can trigger thoughts, and those thoughts lead to certain feelings. Those feelings dictate our actions or inaction, right? Because sometimes we feel a certain way and then we don't want to do anything. And those actions dictate our results. Those results always provide evidence for our initial thought. So I'll give you an example. Well, actually, I'll give you an example in a minute. So give you a little bit more context here. A circumstance in that model says a circumstance is a fact. And the way I think about it is if you lined up 100 people, every person would say the same thing about that circumstance. In Atlanta, it's 74 degrees right now. The sun is shining. That is a fact. Now, the thought we have is an opinion about that circumstance, about that fact. So somebody could say 74 degrees is too, I don't know, it's right in the middle. It's perfect to me. So that's my opinion. That's my thought about that weather. But my grandmother might say it's too cold. But when she was in the last couple of years, she would be in 80-degree weather with blankets on her lap, a sweater on, and this heater in front of her. And I'm like, what is happening? Right? So even though the fact of the matter is it's 74 degrees, my thought about it is that's perfect. Her thought about it would have been it's cold. Right? So that's an opinion, same circumstance, same fact, but we have two different thoughts, two different opinions about that circumstance. Then the feeling is a one-word emotion. It's just a sensation or a vibration in our body in response to our thinking. So sometimes if we're in the middle of a sales conversation and the person says the circumstance is, I can't afford it, then we might have a thought that they don't think I'm worth it, right? And then that causes us to feel shame, afraid, whatever it might be. But that thought is an opinion, right? So let me take you down the rest of that particular model. They don't think I'm worth it, feel ashamed, maybe. And then the action is we don't question. We don't ask them why they said that. And then the result is we continue to think they don't think I'm worth it. Right? Whereas if you just got curious, if your thought when they say, I can't afford it, or it's too much money, or whatever I said the circumstance was, then we could say, I wonder why they think that. And you feel curious. And when you're feeling curious, then maybe you do ask questions. Because I know I ask questions when I feel curious. And then the result is you figure out why they think that way. So let's go to a couple of examples, more concrete, that we can actually see in front of us. Ginseng says, thank you, I had not thought of that. I am curious to know what I said that you hadn't thought of, if you don't mind clarifying. Thank you. So here we have some circumstances, starting a business, and I'm using some of the exact things that we got from the surveys. So it's just so much to do. The circumstance is starting a business. The thought that we have is there's so much to do, or it's too much to do, right? And then we feel overwhelmed. When we feel overwhelmed, in this particular case, I had a client that would eat, sleep, or watch TV. And the result of that is there remains so much to do because you haven't done any of it because you felt overwhelmed and ate, slept, and watched TV rather than just doing what you could. Right? So this right here, this thought is just so much to do is optional. It's an opinion. It can be changed. There's something on the screen. You don't see anything but a black screen. That's weird. Okay, Jennifer's saying she can see it. Lisa, I don't know.
I can see your examples. Like
Okay.
You got 4 squares with examples on it.
Yeah, that's what you should see. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to read it out loud too, and just in case, but you also get the slides. So in this example, that's what it was. Starting a business is just so much to do was our thought. felt overwhelmed, do other things that don't contribute to actually starting a business, and result is you get nothing done, which leaves you with so much to do. So another example, circumstance, starting a business, thought this is going to be a flop. The feeling is afraid, and the action is you don't start because you've told yourself ahead of time this is going to be a flop. And the result is it flops ahead of time. So if I even change this out a little bit, because some other people said that I'm going to fail. So the thought might be I'm or this is going to fail. They felt afraid. They don't start. And then the result is it actually does fail. Like you fail to start. You're failing ahead of time, right? Because we don't actually know. That is an opinion that it's going to fail or I'm going to fail. That's an opinion that we just said is a thought that could be changed. Of all the things that you could think about starting a business, why that? And if that is optional, if thoughts and opinions are optional, what might serve you? Thinking that this is going to flop or that I'm going to give it my best shot. If you think I'm going to give it my best shot, how might you feel then? Maybe hopeful? And if you're feeling hopeful, what might you do? Actually start taking action. Do your best in the moment, which proves the result. Doing your best in the moment, which proves your original thought, I'm going to give it my best shot. So let's look at making money. Making money. I won't make enough money or any money. Then you feel afraid. And what I find when people are stuck in this thought, oftentimes what happens is they do nothing or they keep doing this start-stop thing. So they start going down the path. Like today, we've given you absolutely everything you need. Some of you have decided that I'm going to do guest podcasts and blogging. Some are going to go do Instagram, right? So when you have that thought, I'm not going to make any money or I'm not going to make enough money, and you become afraid, then what happens, like you might be hopeful in 1 minute and then you become afraid and then you stop. And then you go and you start again and then you stop again. And when you don't do enough consistently, you don't get enough lift off to actually start making the money you need. And the result proves your original thought. I won't make enough money. So these are some
I
of
don't
the
know what you're talking about.
Alexis. So this is what happens, right? We talked about either not doing anything at all, which is where some people are, and then we have the lack of consistency. So then last example, business. I don't know what I'm doing. Then you feel afraid. And then what people do is do nothing or they keep taking classes. And the challenge with that, the keep taking classes, is they're actually not doing the real work. They're not doing the work of putting themselves out there. They're just doing the internal work. Well, not even the internal work. I consider that mindset work. But they're just doing a lot of busy work of learning, setting up softwares and systems. Setting up software and systems. And then that proves their original thought, I don't know what I'm doing, right? But again, how do you figure out what exactly to do? You have to do enough things to get feedback and insight as to, oh, okay, if I do it like this versus like that, right? So you have to actually do some things. And all of that is dictated by how you think, not about any external circumstance. Okay. All right, so again, you should have the following items filled out in part or in whole. And I really do hope that I've changed your mind about a few things today, but we do know that neuroplasticity takes some time. And that's why sometimes we get excited about things. And I think I tried to forewarn you a little bit, where we get excited. Okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. And we get out there and it's like, I heard this quote one time by Mike Tyson of all people. It says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And so that's kind of what happens. We get out there and we're excited and we go and try to do the thing, and it doesn't quite go right the first time. And so that's where some accountability comes in, that we can work through the thoughts of imposter syndrome and I don't like selling and it's too much and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, we can really work through what are the root causes of those things. And the accountability comes in when you have doubts as you try to take action. You might have gotten some great insight here, and you say it to the first person, and then you start letting doubt creep in. So the accountability is built in to say, hey, keep going. This is a decision you made in the moment when your mind was clear, your heart was light, and then it's time to actually execute. And then that's when we get scared. So accountability is really important, because then you have others to help you, like ground you and bring you back to, no, this is okay. This is how this is just normal. This is par for the course, right? And you don't waste a lot of time, like I did, changing gears, changing tracks when you might just need to tweak something, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, somebody's laughing. Jensen's laughing. Oh boy. So I said that I would mention, if some of you all wanted to get some more support, how you could do that. And I just wanted to introduce you to the Courage Circle if you're not already familiar with it. For those of you who are interested in continuing this work, you know you need some accountability, you know you have your freak out moments and the self-doubt, and you want somebody to help you kind of keep moving forward and to kind of hold your hand along the way, consider joining us at the Courage Circle. It is a 6-month process, because we talked about doing things consistently enough and with enough effort to actually achieve liftoff, right? And so I find that, and after doing this quite a while, I found that 3 months is too short. So we ended up creating a 6-month program, so you have enough support throughout the way to get over all of the stuff that comes up and to get feedback as you go along the way. So if this is something that you're interested in, you want to talk to me about, that's the link for you to book a time to talk to me about it specifically for you. And what I'm doing for everybody that's registered for this class today, since we've done a lot of the work that we would do initially on that first call anyway, is I'm rolling in your registration into the Courage Circle. So it's not like you paid for the registration here and you would have to pay for the Courage Circle. We will give you credit for your registration here. So that's the link if you want to go now. And that offer is good through the end of this month. And then later on today, just for, oh, you're absolutely welcome, Alicia, Jennifer. Later today, I'm going to email you the handouts. I'm going to email you the slides, all of that stuff with the replay. So we have, these are the resources you'll get. Don't worry about that. Don't have to write any of that down. So these are the resources. And I also promised that I would give you the Simple Startup Business Plan, which has a little bit more information in it in terms of how to structure your program. Some of you all were thinking about a coaching program, so how to structure it. And then also, I believe there's some other things in there about your money, that when you have your program, how many of them do you need to sell in order to sustain yourself on a month-to-month basis. So we talk about that also in the Simple Startup Business Plan, which you are going to get as a bonus here. So that is also part of some of the work that we do in the program together, making sure that you understand all of it. This, what we have today, is absolutely step number one. There are going to be some parts in the business plan that you may not have some answers for. And if you find yourself to be in that space and you want some support and you want some help, then consider reaching out and doing the discovery session with me, so that we can see there are a couple of ways that you can work with me to get some support with that. But at least you have it, so that way you can put all of your decisions that you make down in one place and you're not all over the place. Remember, we talked about the questions that you can ask yourself. You can always go back to this business plan with the decisions you made, so that it's a lot easier when other stuff comes up for you. to make future decisions because you're like, oh, this is what we decided when our mind was clear and we weren't afraid and our heart was full. Okay. So that said, let's go back to the chat and I want to answer any questions. Oh, thanks, Alexis. She's saying Courage Circle is worth it. Any questions that have come up for anybody?
I have a
yes.
super basic question,
Yes, ma'am.
just to make my notes clear.
Mhm.
Where did we talk about, like, what are the sections that we talked about delivery method and sales method? I don't, like,
Sales method is SOAP.
okay,
Okay, and the delivery method was the one where the way I had it there, you thought it was either this or that.
gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And while we're going through, y'all may want to scroll up through the chat because on each one, I asked you to put your answers in the chat. So really, you could just take them from the chat and put them on your paper. Let me scroll down to make sure. All right. I don't know if Ivory's still in. She was supposed to be working on a couple of things so we can tighten up her power statement. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we covered today? Everybody have their answers for business hours, power statement, marketing strategy. Let's see. Does everybody have their answers for these questions here?
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
The delivery method. Okay, you just said it was the. Oh shoot! What did I think I just have to scroll up a little bit more. You said it was the 2 columns. So
Yours
never
is
mind. I'll find it.
your education program in a webinar.
Okay. Got it.
You got it? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it says coaching program and a conference.
So, yep, I found it.
Okay, cool. All right. Can everybody verify for me that you don't have to tell me what your answers are, but can you verify that you have filled out these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things?
I verify.
That's your verbal verification? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Oh, good. So Jensen, you're clear now. Bring this back down. Okay, we got a capital yes and happy. She's clear and happy. We'll take it. Okay. Is that okay? All right, let me stop the recording.